Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. Now, let's start. Bakugo tells off Mineta. The cafeteria was bustling with students, the sounds of clinking bowls and food-stuffed mouths and scraping chairs creating the music of the building. Bakugo sat with his usual lunch crew, his normal expression of disinterest and agitation etched into his young features as ate, only halfway listening to the story Kirishima was telling them. It was so cool. Why no? I just have to train harder to get up to their level, he said, shoving a pile of meat into his mouth. Kaminari pointed at his classmate accusingly. Dude, you train just as hard if not harder than everyone else. Can't let you get ahead that easily. Bakugo wasn't paying much attention, his mind wandering elsewhere. The loudness of the cafeteria was often grating. It wasn't that he disliked loud noises, his explosions were louder than anything anyone else could make. It was the cacophony of voices, each one louder than the next, annoying and frivolous, and what was that? A voice stood out, his ears picking up the agitating voice of that purple BSD in his class whose name he never bothered remembering. There it was again, their name. His SO's name. He could pick it out anywhere. Eyes of fire darted around to pick out where the voice was coming from. When he spotted the pervert, Bakugo let out a low growl, snapping Kirishima out of his story. Hey man, what's wrong? What does? Bakugo stood up from the lunch table, making their bowls and glasses clatter as he silently stood up, hands jammed in his pockets as he walked towards the annoyance in his line of sight. You've seen her, right? Oh man, YN is so hot looking. But don't tell dash. A loud slam echoed across the room, smoke filling Mineta's nostrils as he jumped back, nearly falling off his chair. Bakugo loomed over him like a demon, eyes narrowed and livid. The F you say about my girl, you pervert? His voice was low and dangerous, sparks flitting between his fingers splayed on the table, burn marks marring the clean surface. His jaw was tight, teeth clenched so tightly they might crack from the stress. Mineta sat frozen with fear, eyes bugging out of his head, body trembling. Answer me when I ask you something, shitface. Bakugo grabbed the front of Mineta's uniform, pulling him close so he could view every single wrinkle and brow furrow in Bakugo's face. And nothing, I didn't say anything, I swear I'd never ever. His voice was low, free hand coming up emitting sparks. You better thing hope we aren't paired up in training, you won't survive it. I better not hear another nasty word out of you. We clear? This was a predator threatening his prey, knowing he was stronger and would devour him easily. Mineta nodded furiously before Bakugo dropped him on the floor without so much as a glance back in H's direction, ignoring the stares and hushed whispers that followed as he walked back to his lunch table. Mineta kept his fat mouth shut for the rest of the day, knowing it was the exact wrong thing to talk about Bakugo's girlfriend. The day was sunny and bright, just the way Kirishima liked it. It was a perfect day for training, and he was in a particularly good mood. He was going to meet up with his SO later for a date after school. Even though she didn't go to UA, Kirishima still thought she was amazing and smart and just overall pretty great. He was training to become a hero so he could protect people, and now he had someone close to him he truly wanted to protect. It wasn't a day to slack off on training. Hair for brains. Stay focused, moron. The loud, angry voice of Bakugo brought Kirishima out of his daydream stupor, stuttering before he went into a ready stance as his friend flew at him, explosions and fire spraying dirt and rocks in every direction. A clash of hardened skin and gloved hands lit up the training field, Bakugo never going easy on an opponent. But Kirishima was getting stronger, starting to recognize his classmates' attack patterns, something he learned from Midoriya. If there was anything he could glean from his powerful friends and classmates, he took down mental notes. Out of breath and exhausted after training, Kirishima went to take a break and grab some water with his other classmates. Bakugo continued setting off explosions in the training field, not nearly as tired as Kirishima felt. I still have far to go, he muttered to himself. The chatter a short way off echoed in his ears, still slightly ringing from all the close-range explosions. Despite the annoying echo in his head, a recognized name made his eyes widen. Dude, I'd watch what you say, 𝐂𝐿 muttered off to the side. Mineta was drooling as his mind wandered. But YN is so sexy I can't help it, I just want her to hold me so I can put my face in her dash hey. Kirishima's exhaustion was promptly forgotten as he stomped over to his purple classmate who he already didn't like very much. The way he spoke about girls was pretty unmanly and disrespectful. Were you talking about YN just now? She's my girlfriend, you know, and I don't really appreciate you talking about her like that. The sun low in the sky on this late afternoon made Kirishima's sweaty muscles and spiked-up hair stand out, like a human carved from rock, steady and solid and unwavering. Hey, I wasn't dash, he totally was. 𝐂𝐿 cut him off, shaking his head in disapproval. I told him to shut it but he didn't listen. Kirishima looked down at Mineta, his normal happy smile turned down in a frown. She doesn't deserve to be talked about like that, it's not hero-like or manly. So don't do it again, got it? He leaned forward, invading Mineta's personal space. Why, you got it? No problem. He stuttered out before Kirishima stomped away back towards Bakugo. He needed to let out his frustrations and was feeling up to a second round of intense fighting. This time he felt like he could really win. You knew Bakugo better than just about anyone, but sometimes it felt like he still kept you at arm's length. And maybe it was his direct influence of being walled off and unapproachable, but you weren't that great at opening up about things either, especially not about having a massive crush on his friend Kirishima. Bakugo pushed you, and everyone else around him by consequence, to be better, to work harder, to want to win just because of his natural competitive energy. You had gotten into UA together and ended up in the same class. And while he stuck around you in the beginning, there was someone else that started hanging around more, gaining his attention as well as yours. Kirishima a hero caught your eyes as soon as you walked into the classroom for the first time, his bright red hair and infectious smile making your heart flutter. And while his eyes were the same color as your best friend's, they were warm and inviting rather than fierce and angry. As Kirishima and Bakugo grew closer in their friendship and support of each other, becoming heroes, you didn't miss a chance to hang out with them as well. But the one thing Bakugo had that you didn't, was a tenacious, unabashed courage to say whatever was on his mind, not caring what anyone else thought of it. You, unfortunately, didn't glean this quality from him. While Kirishima wasn't the smartest guy in class, everything else caught your attention: his politeness, his energy, his sparkling smile, his dedication to doing his best, his friendly nature, that ridiculous hair. You were crushing hard and had no idea what to do about it. You doodled in the margins of your papers when Aizawa took his naps, making sure no one saw the sketches of his face with hearts doodled all around. Or the confession notes that you always scribbled out and eventually tossed away knowing you weren't brave enough to actually tell him how you felt. It was hopeless at this rate. Oi, Morin. Pay attention, I'm helping you study, not watching you daydream. Bakugo's irritated voice brought you out of yet another blurry daze of Kirishima filling your thoughts. Sorry, the hell is wrong with you lately? Your brain messed up or something? You know I can tell when something's up. Though communicating wasn't Bakugo's strong point, he could at least try to recognize when you were feeling off. But of course you could never let him know your secret. It's nothing. You're a bad liar. Yeah, well, I picked it up from you. What was that? Studying in his room was forgotten as he put you in a headlock. Unfortunately, the rustling knocked your notebook to the ground and it opened on a very embarrassing page. Not so fast. Bakugo snatched up the book before you could grab it off the floor and stared very hard with an indiscernible expression at the sketch of you and Kirishima kissing, with floaty sparkly hearts all around it. Oh no. Your face was coincidentally the same color as Kirishima's hair in that exact moment. The hell is this? Wait. You serious? He basically screamed in your face, waving the notebook around erratically. You wanna SCK face with shitty hair? Don't say that, God. So you gonna be a chicken forever or what? You peeked out from between your fingers covering your blushing face to look at your best friend, his expression expectant. What? I won't repeat myself, idiot. There's no way I'd ever dash, Bakugo growled, hand around your notebook popping dangerously as you tried to wrestle it from him before it went up in flames. Tell him I like him. I'm not friends with cowards. So SCK it up and spit it out before I tell him. Your face was aghast with horror. You wouldn't. But you knew he would. Classic no shame Bakugu Katsuki. It'll be fine, he can't shut up about you when you're not around, so I dunno what the hell you're worried about anyway. Wait. You processed his words very carefully. Does he like me? His face scrunched up in anger again. The hell did I just say about repeating myself? Tomorrow. No excuses. Very few people said no to Bakugu Katsuki, especially not when he was your best friend telling you to confess to your crush. No excuses. The classroom was mostly quiet with hushed whispers and the shuffling of sleepy feet across the dusty floor tiles while everyone waited for Aizawa to roll in the door in his sleeping bag to get class started. Todoroki was reviewing the previous class notes with Hirozu since they had a test coming up when he swore he heard his own name flit across his ears somewhere in the room. Taking a cursory look around, nothing caught his eye until, he heard her name again. He turned around towards the voice to see Mineta talking with Kaminari and Zero off in the back of the room, gesturing wildly with that gross look on his face that made Todoroki's insides shrivel up in disgust. I mean, you've seen her when she comes by, right? Those legs, bro, I dunno if I would dash, and those slender fingers. Oh man, I want YN to just dash. A shadow was suddenly cast over Mineta, looming an arc and extremely cold. It sent a shiver down Mineta's spine, teeth clattering as he looked up to see Todoroki looming over him like a predator eyeing down its prey. Were you talking about SO just now? Todoroki's voice was low and dangerous, his eyes gleaming and sharp like a knife. Mineta stuttered, nearly falling out of his chair with fear. No way. I wasn't dash. He felt cold, extremely cold all of a sudden. I strongly suggested you keep your perverse topic of conversations away from her. Or better yet, don't talk about any girls like that. It's unbecoming of a hero. With a swift turn, Todoroki returned to his desk, his shoulders still tense as he pulled out his chair with silent force and sat down. He will not show mercy if you keep it up, man. I strongly suggest you back down from talking about his girl, Kaminari said, nervously eyeing their stoic classmate from his seat. Mineta nodded enthusiastically, his fingers nearly frozen to the bone. Today was a training day, meaning everyone was buzzing with excitement at getting to let out pent-up energy outside during hero exercises. The boys were putting on their hero costumes in the locker room, chatting idly about what Aizawa or All Might could make them do. Deku, I hope we get paired up to spar today. Your new super move is coming along and I want to see if I can block or deflect it. Midoriya took his green hero costume out of his locker, thinking about his own training regimen and improving his shoot style. I can tell you've been practicing outside of class, Midoriya. But you aren't the only one, Ida said in return, tying his shoes tightly. The last thing he needed was a stray shoelace while he was running with his quirk. Turning around, Midoriya spotted Mineta looking particularly drooly, and while his often lewd or inappropriate behavior was usually cause for concern, that wasn't what made him stop getting dressed. It was who that behavior was currently directed towards. You've seen YN, right? I hope she comes to visit UA again soon. The skirts at her school are shorter than the ones hero man, Mineta said, drool pooling down the side of his mouth. Suddenly a strong hand clamped down on his shoulder, bringing him out of his imaginative stupor. Hey, Mineta-kun, do you mind not talking about YN like that? I don't think it's really appropriate. He was smiling down at his classmate nervously, but Midoriya's voice was steady and his grip on Mineta's shoulder tightened ever so slightly with each word. With a gulp, Mineta nodded his head, the looming figure of Midoriya slowly retreating back to Ida. You know, Ida-kun, I wouldn't mind if Mineta-kun was my partner today, either, he said, slamming his locker closed, nearly denting the metal at the handle. Reader is gender neutral. Have you seen YN? Kirishima asked, feet propped up on the couch cushion, a light clean popsicle stick poking out of his mouth. I figured they'd be back by now. Kaminari shrugged, flipping through the channels of the communal TV in the shared living space. Nope. I wouldn't worry though. Probably spending the night with their folks. They had dinner there, right? Yeah, you're probably right, Kirishima replied, scratching the back of his head. He relaxed into the couch, setting aside the gut feeling that something was wrong. It was nothing. After a while Kirishima heard the echo of thunder outside, the pitter-patter of rain hitting the roof of the dorm. Suddenly the front door flew open. Turning his head from the TV he saw you, dripping wet from head to toe. Hey. You're back. I thought before he could finish you bolted out of the room towards the dormitories, the pained look on your face making his brows furrow. Hey! Wait! Kirishima leapt over the couch, running after you. He knew something was wrong, and this confirmed it. Dude! Kaminari yelled after him, but Kirishima already rounded the corner and bolted up the stairs after you. He followed the damp footprints in the carpet down to your room before he stopped. You were trying to open your door but struggled with the key in your wet hands. What happened? I thought you were with your parents, Kirishima called down the hallway. His voice caught in his throat as you turned to him, wet hair sticking to your face, eyes full of pain and hurt. Just leave me alone. You screamed back. It probably woke up anyone who was asleep at this hour on your floor, but you didn't care. As soon as the key slid into your bedroom door you tossed it open just as Kirishima sprinted down the hallway, but he was too late as you slammed the door closed in his face. N. You can talk to me. Go away, you cried through the door. Please, Kirishima, just go away. I can't talk about it right now. He was about to PND a fist on your door, but decided against it, letting his hand fall like dead weight to his side as he stared at the painted bedroom door. Just text me, I guess. I'm not far away, he muttered, just loud enough for you to hopefully hear. With a sigh Kirishima walked back down the hallway, past Kaminari questioning him from the couch, straight to his own bedroom where he locked the door, phone turned on in case you wanted to talk. It didn't buzz all night. The next few days were concerning, and Kirishima wasn't the only one who noticed your tired and listless behavior. You were sluggish during training, which Aizawa called you out on. You ate lunch alone, pushing away anyone who offered up a seat. You brushed off friends who just wanted to make sure you were all right. The weekend rolled around and Kirishima finally put his foot down. He felt like a shitty friend, unable to talk with you about whatever was going on. It was obviously something bad since it affected your mood and behavior in ways everyone noticed. He took out his phone to text you, and wasn't going to accept "go away" as an answer this time. I'm coming over, please just let me in. He picked up your favorite snack from his desk, he'd gone to several different stores after class to find it, and made his way to your dorm. Softly knocking, he waited. It's me, he said, though he assumed they knew who it was already. Finally he heard the latch on the other side unlock as the door slid open. He couldn't hold in the surprised expression when he saw your face, tired and worn and just small. Realizing he probably looked like a JRK with his mouth hung open, he straightened up and extended the snack out to you. I brought you something. To cheer you up. Oh, thanks. You can come in. I think, you hesitated, but the bright look on his face pulled you in. I think I'm ready to talk now. With that Kirishima nodded and walked into your room as you closed the door behind him. He noted the trash can full of used tissues, and a freshly opened tissue box next to your bed. This wasn't good. So, just lay it on me, say as much or as little as you want. I'm not going anywhere, he said, sitting down on your bed and patting the spot next to him for you to sit down as well. You did. You sniffled, fingers fidgeting in your lap, eyes avoiding his gaze. SHT, where do I even start? So you know I was with my parents the other night. I was going to say after dinner. Catch up, you know. They're worried about us with everything happening with UA and all that, yeah, Kirishima agreed, scratching the back of his neck. My folks are on my case too, constantly telling me to be careful, stay alert, all that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, during dinner, they brought up dating, asked if I had anyone I was interested in, dumb stuff that's really none of their business, no. Kirishima didn't miss the heat rising to your cheeks as you spoke, but he felt his own face warm up as well. They were so busy with training and villain work that honestly dating wasn't on his top list of priorities, but the idea occasionally flickered across his mind if it was with the right person. Okay, dating, got it, so what happened then? Your lip trembled, knuckles turning white as your nails dug into the skin of your palm from tension. Suddenly another hand covered yours. Hey, it's okay. Whatever happened can't happen twice, and especially won't happen while I'm here. His eyes were so gentle and accepting and patient, they spurred you on. We got into a fight about it, the pressure was a lot and I just didn't want to deal with it, and then I suddenly just shouted, "What if I brought another girl home?" It just sort of came out. I was pretty riled up, I guess, and they were just silent for a minute. Wait, 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 said, interrupting your story. Do you like? Your cheeks flared up with embarrassment, but you nodded. I like both. I think boys and girls are cute, I'm attracted to both, is that? You looked at him with pleading eyes, asking him not to yell at you or think you were a bad person. No way. I'm bi too. Bi buddies. He broke out into that appealing grin of his and you couldn't help but mirror his smile after registering his words. You weren't alone, and he didn't judge you. But anyway. Sorry for interrupting. Oh, you bit your lip, breaking eye contact again. They got really mad. Yelled at me. They pretty much kicked me out, called me a bad person. A sob escaped you, remembering their harsh words. The love of a parent was supposed to be unconditional, but apparently their love didn't reach very far. I can't go back, Kiri. I don't have a home anymore. That's so . Oh, he was steaming mad now, hearing you cry and what your parents said to you. It was beyond unmanly, it was downright wrong. He grabbed your shoulders and turned you to face him on the bed, the heartbroken look on your face spurring him on. Listen to me, YN. You're super awesome and strong and smart and great, okay? And if they don't like who you are or who you like, then that's on them and they have to live with making you feel bad. But you're not a bad person, got it? Shaking nervously, you nodded, acknowledging the words of a friend. They might be family, but they're not family, understand? Your friends and the people who support you no matter what are your family, like me. And everyone else. He tacked on the last bit quickly. Before he knew what was happening, you jumped forward and enveloped him in a crushing hug, burying your face in his arm. Thanks, Kiri, I really needed to hear that. You're the best. Though your voice was muffled, he heard every word, managing to get one hand up and pat your lower back. No problem at all, I meant it all. And, though my folks can be kinda lame sometimes, they're pretty cool overall. You can eat dinner with us if you want. You pulled away, a smile tugging at your lips as you wiped the drying tears from your eyes. 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 grabbed the tissue box from your bedside table, holding it out for you. Oh yeah. You finally gonna force feed me all those old Crimson Riot movies? Oh hell yeah, you know it. The rest of the night was spent with laughter and delicious snacks. It felt overwhelmingly good to know that someone had your back, that they didn't think of you differently, that they weren't going to yell at you or kick you out for being true to yourself. You were grateful, and you were happy. Hey, Ojiro. What's up, are you out here training too? 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 asked as he heard someone else enter the training area. His SO looked up from practicing some of their martial arts moves to wave to their classmate as well. Yeah, I didn't have anything better to do so might as well. Hey, those were some nice moves. SO wanna have a little sparring match? Ojiro hopped from one foot to another, tail waving back and forth behind him almost mockingly. Oh, you think you can beat me here? Don't get cocky, they said, walking up towards Ojiro. 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 placed a strong hand on their shoulder. He's a tricky one with that tail of his. He kicked my butt last time we had a match, so just stay on your toes. I know you can do it. He gave an enthusiastic fist pump to act as his SO's official cheerleader for the match. You better watch out, Ojiro. They're really badass even without using their quirk. 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 smirked at his classmate as SO made their way out towards the open training area, facing each other in fighting stances. We'll see about that, I won't go easy on you, Ojiro said, hands poised to strike at any moment. Wouldn't have it any other way, they said in response, eyes glistening at the challenge. It only took a second before Ojiro made the first move, lunging at them and swinging down with his powerful tail. His opponent managed to dodge out of the way, flipping to the side and trailing a kick towards Ojiro's head, but he blocked it just in time. 𝐭𝐻𝐼𝐵 watched from the sidelines as his SO and Ojiro duked it out. One would get a hit in, but then miss the next striking opportunity. A flying kick, a punch, a dodge, a roll, a flip, they were on fire and it seemed like neither was quite pulling ahead of the other. Wow, SO is so manly and cool. I'm gonna have to train with them more often so I can get better. Ouch. Ooh, that had to hurt. He winced as a hard swipe of Ojiro's tail made contact with his SO's side, putting them on the ground. You can do it. Don't give up. They managed to gain back their footing right before Ojiro gave another powerful tail attack towards the ground, moving out of the way just in time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Okay, I give up. Geez, they said, completely out of breath and nearly collapsing on the ground from exhaustion. You're really good, you're not bad yourself. With a little more practice you might even beat me, Ojiro said with a laugh as he helped them up. It was a good fight. Yo. Wow, that was so awesome. I couldn't last 5 minutes against him and you went above and beyond. Kirishima ran over and picked up his SO, spinning them around in a circle. They were a blushing mess as Kirishima spun them around until he got too dizzy, Ojiro laughing to the side at what a cute couple they made. Despite seeming cold and distant on the outside, he's mostly just socially awkward due to a lack of interaction with kids his own age growing up in an abusive household. He gets better about it over time, but his bluntness isn't really something that goes away. He's new to the dating world and basically needs someone to tell him that he should take you on a proper first date that's outside of UA. He's like, oh, okay. I'll do that then. But then he gets kind of nervous. He's still letting a lot of his wall down slowly, so an official first date says I trust you and want to see where this goes, which makes him feel vulnerable. Not that he'll tell anyone that knows that his hair and eyes make him stand out as Endeavor's kid, and he doesn't really want to be bombarded by the press or media. So he picks dinner at an inconspicuous restaurant that has a back area hidden away from the rest of the restaurant offers to pay for everything. Part of him hates being dependent on his dad's money, but another part of him wants to just spend all of it frivolously to PSS his dad off when he sees a large bill for a nice restaurant. Slowly gets better at casual conversation and icebreakers. Wants to steer clear of anything villain or hero related and just relax for a single night with you. No stress or worry. Shies away from physical touch like hand-holding or hugs for a while. Not only does he want to be respectful, but he's just not super comfortable with physical affection until he really gets to know someone well. If you can make this boy laugh at any point, he'll appreciate it. He doesn't laugh as much as he feels he should, so anything to lighten the mood is welcome. While leaving the restaurant, someone comes up and recognizes him and attempts to interview him. This is him off because he just wants to get away from associations with his father and have a peaceful date, so he grabs your wrist and you basically run through a maze of alleyways until you lose them. He apologizes, saying he hates being Endeavor's son and hopes you don't judge him based on who his father is and what he's done. Of course you don't. And he's grateful you're patient with him in trying to overcome a lot of his hang-ups and emotional struggles. This boy right here. Bold as hell, considering being forward and honest, very manly traits. But when it comes to romance, he's a bit at a loss and out of his comfort zone. Overall, he just really enjoys hanging out with you. You guys train together and study, but you've never had a proper first date, and when he realizes that he hasn't actually taken you out properly, he feels pretty bad and beats himself up about it like he skipped an important step in the whole dating schedule. Kirishima has a lot of energy and overall wants to make sure you have fun, and want you to think is fun as well and not boring. So he decides on a theme park date, but of course asks if that's what you want to do before buying tickets. He's actually nervous on the day of the date. It's mostly just been like hanging out with your best friend under the pretense that you're dating, but not actually doing any dating type stuff like holding hands or kissing. The thought of kissing turns his face the same color as his hair. Of course, he doesn't let you see any of his insecurities or personal worries. In the immortal words of his hero Crimson Riot, he should be manly and confident. A life lived without regret. He's really great at making casual conversation and can talk about anything, honestly. You love how he can make you laugh. The long lines at the theme park provide the perfect opportunity for just getting to know each other better outside of UA. He doesn't realize it until today, but he gets very protective over you. Someone else in line hits on you while he's right there and goes full-on protective boyfriend. This is the first time he grabs your hand and he doesn't let go until you're on the ride, and then he holds it for the whole rest of the day because while he really likes holding hands and showing other people that you're with him, and you like holding his hand, which makes him feel pretty great that you're proud to be seen with him, he will jump into every single roller coaster line because he loves thrill rides. He picks out one of the photos from the end of a ride and buys it as a keepsake. Eventually it starts to get dark and you suggest something he's been actively avoiding. The Ferris wheel, because he knows from movies that people usually kiss in those, and is having an inner monologue with himself. What about his teeth? What if he accidentally bites or hurts you? What if he kisses your eye or something by mistake? What if his breath smells bad? What if activates his quirk in a moment of panic and cuts you or something? What if the kiss is bad and you don't want to date him anymore? His insecurities hit him hard here, but up on the Ferris wheel while he's feeling nervous, he just looks over and sees how happy you are, and he asks if you had fun, and you're just hell yeah. Today was awesome, which puts that blinding smile on his face. Half of him debates on whether or not to go in for a cliché romantic kiss, the other half is telling him to just go for it. No regrets, right? So he does and hopes for the best. It's a bit lopsided and awkward, but still a cute chaste first kiss. At first he has his eyes open and then realizes that's weird and you're supposed to close your eyes, and oh, kissing is kinda cool. Devolves into giggly laughter because he just thinks hanging out with you is fun and appreciates that you don't think is boring, and you're like, of course you're not boring. And he feels pretty dang good about himself by the end of the night. He was a nervous wreck when he officially asked you out on a date for the first time. He wants it to be perfect, hoping no villains or unexpected events come up that might ruin it. There are some heroes doing an autograph event at the local aquarium, some of his favorites and some of yours, too, so he offers that up as an idea, a mix of calm and exciting. He's sweating bullets on the way there, holding your hand, but he keeps having to let go to wipe his hands on his breathes. You try and hold on and he lets go. It becomes a game after a while to ease the tension. His mind is racing with question. What if I make a fool of myself? What if a villain attacks? What if I say something to offend them? Did I forget my wallet? No, okay, phew. What if, oh my god, what if they want a 𝐔𝐬𝐚𝐿? He's muttering to himself, which you know is normal at this point by the time you arrive at the aquarium. You both wait in line for autographs. It's already pretty long, so you both are just passing the time chatting and looking over the aquarium map to see what exhibits you want to go to. Well, it ends up being all of them, so it's gonna be a busy day. Midoriya, of course, freaks out when he gets to the front of the line for an autograph on some of his memorabilia, you off to the side getting yours. He keeps asking questions about their quirk, but you drag him away because he's holding up the line. You both pass by the jellyfish, which are nice and calm the way they dance through the water. You're looking at them, but Midoriya is looking at you. There's another game where you both try and pick out fish that look like you. He finds one that's the same color as your hair, and they find one with giant eyes and spots that look like his freckles. He's a blushing mess when you say his freckles are cute. There's a big long underwater tunnel with thousands of fish going overhead. The dim lights and the reflection of shifting water feels pretty romantic. You think it's the perfect time for a peck on the cheek, but unfortunately he thinks the exact same thing, so your heads turn at the same time your lips meet. Oops. He breaks the kiss quickly, apologizing profusely, face a horrible shade of red as he stutters and freaks out that he's gone too far, was too forward, you'll not want another date with him, etc. But you grab his face and say he shouldn't apologize, the kiss was nice but not long enough in all honesty. Well, his boy thinks about All Might's bravery in the face of adversity and just goes for it, kissing you on purpose this time. It's very chaste and gentle and awkward but still quite nice. You both walk hand in hand back home, he's not feeling as nervous about things anymore. This boy is antidate at first, thinks they're dumb and stupid and a waste of time. He sees you every day, so why the hell make a show of it? But his competitive streak gets the best of him. Would he be a SHT boyfriend if he didn't take you on a date? F that, he'll take you on the most badass date of your life and show up everyone and every other date you've ever been on. He's an outdoorsy type, and doesn't like large crowds. He also doesn't want people bugging him when he just wants it to be the two of you, so he decides on an outdoor hike. Researches picturesque trails that would be both challenging and fun, for him at least. You're his partner though, so you should have no trouble keeping upright. He's an early riser to be prepared for him to get you out of bed at the but crack of dawn because it'll be a long day and the fewer people he runs into the better. If anyone questions where he's going, he'll either ignore them or tell them to mind their own DMN business. Does not tell you where he's taking you, but says to dress comfortably and wear good shoes. Leads you to the train station. He bought the tickets ahead of time to keep it a secret, so you sit trying to wake up during the half-hour-long ride. He's fairly quiet but will thump you in the nose if you start dozing off. Finally tells you that you'll be hiking and you better keep up or he'll leave you behind. He won't actually leave you behind, but knows you'll pick up the pace if he makes it into a competition. There are no other people around this early in the morning, so you both use your quirks to race to the next trail marker. He has speed and maneuverability on his side, but you have your own tricks. After a while he gets impatient and basically drags you to where he wanted to end up in the first place. A picturesque ridge overlooking a small waterfall, trees and silence in every direction. It was straight out of a postcard. You're touched that he actually planned all this himself and managed to keep it secret. Bakugo moves something into your hands, muttering under his breath through gritted teeth while avoiding your eyes. His ears are pink, though. He made you both bento lunches to eat at the waterfall. When you say it's delicious he replies, well of course it is, I-Fing made it, because he has to get the last word in while touting his cooking abilities. You both stay here for several hours, halfway in silence just enjoying the company of each other, the other half filled with sarcastic banter and the occasional quip on who is the better fighter. Which turns into a sparring match. His ego gets the best of him and he asks if this is the best DMN date you've ever been on, though he's sure it is. You pause in mock thinking, making his face scrunch up in agitation. What could he do to make it more memorable? And of course this boy is over the top and fearless on the outside and he reaches to grab your shirt and smash his lips against yours in a first kiss. It's rough and hot and his hands are shaking because he has no idea what he's doing, but it seemed like the right thing to do in that moment and hopes he isn't total SHT at kissing. He breaks away and you see just the smallest hint of fear in his eyes at being vulnerable for once, but you smile and kiss him on the cheek, leaving him stunned for a second while you run away laughing for him to catch you. Of course he gives into the chase. You sat in your dorm room, sketchbook in hand while taking a break from the intense hours of dedicated studying. Aizawa's tests were always difficult, so studying wasn't optional. Even so, your brain needed a break, and your go-to way of winding down was doodling in your sketchbook. A knock at your door made your hand pause over the textured paper. Hello YN. Are you ready for our study date? I brought tea. Momo's voice always made your heart flutter. And of course she would bring tea, always so considerate. You set your sketchbook down on your bed before getting up to open your dorm room door. Your girlfriend stood there in comfortable clothes and a pile of books under one arm, and 2 sealed mugs of tea in the other. Leaning in close you gave her a peck on the cheek before she let herself in, cheeks flushed from the affection. You're always so cute when you blush, Momo, you said, closing the door behind her. Ahem. She coughed in a poor attempt to cover her own embarrassment. We should get started. What's this? Setting the books down on your bed and the mugs down on your desk, the open sketchbook and discarded pencil caught her eye. You could feel the heat rising in your skin all the way to your ears. Momo knew that you enjoyed drawing, but that particular open page was, is this me? Her voice was soft as she gingerly picked up the sketchbook, eyes scanning over the soft pencil lines and eraser marks that made up her own portrait. You drew me? Momo turned around to face you, eyes sparkling, brows knit together in question. I'm sorry. It's probably weird, but I dunno, I just really enjoy sketching you. I've done it so much I can pretty much do it from memory now. After realizing what you just said, your hands flew to your mouth while Momo flipped through the rest of the sketchbook and found 1, 2, 3, 4 pages and pages of her own visage staring back at her. Oh YN, I'm so flattered. These are so well done, too. She should be embarrassed. She should feel flustered. But she wasn't. Momo sometimes struggled with second-guessing herself, wondering if she was good enough, if other people around here were far more suited to the intense demands of hero work and constant training. However, this small gesture told Momo that her partner thought she was appealing, that she was important, that she was on their mind. Tears prickled at the edges of her vision. Hey! Oh no, please don't cry, I'm sorry, I won't dash. You were cut off as Momo promptly turned around and kissed you, delicately and softly but with feeling behind it. Did you have more? Oh, that makes me sound so self-centered. The studying was forgotten and the tea fell cold as you both sat together on the bed, side by side, you revealing the intimacy behind what you saw in her and what your hands recreated in feeble attempt to materialize love from the soft lead of your pencil. The sky was dark, the clouds overhead shifting against the Earl Grey backdrop like foreshadowing in a novel of something bigger on the horizon. The villain was tough, tougher than All Might had anticipated, and the fight was garnering a lot of outside attention from onlookers and civilians. There was a helicopter overhead as well, capturing the fight to air live on TV screens as people sat safely in their homes knowing the symbol of peace was out to save the day again, just like he always did. Outside of the grocery store you saw people running both to and from something unseen outside the glass sliding doors. Grabbing up your bags, the growing crowd to your right caught your attention. Some people were silent, others were yelling loud cheers. Go, All Might! Destroy that villain, All Might! You can do it, All Might! You started running, your legs working faster than your brain. With heavy bags weighing down your arms, you still managed to shove through the audience of people until finally he came into view. He looked tired and strained, not like the strong man you were familiar with. The villain was strong, and All Might yelled over the crowd to stay back, citizens, to make sure no one got close enough to become a casualty in the fight. Your heart was beating out of your chest, silently hoping that the fight would end soon. Seeing him struggle was difficult, knowing his job as #1 hero was already insanely demanding and stressful. But you were always there when he needed to rest, when he needed someone to confide in. One final blow and the fight was over, the villain laying on the ground motionless as incoming police went to apprehend and capture the wrongdoer. All Might turned to wave at the crowd, but only you noticed the bags under his sunken eyes and his heavy breathing. He coughed into his hand before darting off into a side alley. You followed. Whipping around police and onlookers, you jogged around the corner of the alley where your eyes were met with a haze of strange smoke, but in the middle you could hear the coughing again. Toshinori, the man you loved, was in that smoke somewhere. You called out hesitantly, taking small steps towards the white smoke. Toshi! It's me. I saw the fight. Are you all right? The coughing suddenly stopped as the smoke dissipated, revealing a strange sight. The hair color, the clothes, they were the same as what he was just wearing, but this man did not look like the Toshinori you knew. But when he looked at you from the end of the alley, you knew it could be no one else. What dash, please? I don't want you to see me this way. You shouldn't be here. You took another step forward, voice almost a whisper. The sound of police sirens were far off and distant. So it really is you, then. Is this the real you that you hide from everyone else? The All Might that cameras don't see. He let out a long sigh, looking off to the side, avoiding your eyes. This man you see. This is the true All Might, at least now it is. I understand if you dash, you were just a few feet away from him now, able to see his sunken cheeks and lackluster hair and baggy clothes. Even though he looked different, you knew he was exactly the same on the inside. Toshi, all I want is honesty between us. It would be horribly shallow of me to leave when you're still the same man I fell in love with, no matter what you look like. That made him snap to attention, striking blue eyes burning into your own. But, are you sure? The All Might on TV is now just a mask I wear. I can't keep up that form as long as I used to. This is the real me. Are you okay with that? You were close enough now to place a gentle hand on his cheek. He leaned into the touch unconsciously. You dork. Of course I'm okay with that. We stick together, right? You've helped me out, helped everyone around the city, more times than I can count. You're overdue for someone to help you for once. I'm not going anywhere. He wrapped his arms around you and held you close. He smelled exactly the same as he always did, like comfort and safety. You hoped he could feel the same in you. The day was average and boring, Shinsu going through the paces like he always did. Though he wasn't in the hero course at UA, the faintest probability that he could earn his way in clung to the back of his mind like a moth drawn to a flame. After the sports festival, he realized his shortcomings in terms of physical combat ability in the event that his quirk either wouldn't work because his opponent wasn't human, or didn't work because their willpower was strong enough to overcome it. So he trained, focusing on the things he knew would help him win the next time around. But something else was on his mind. Something that often flashed behind his eyelids before he went to sleep. Actually, it was more like someone. He wasn't one to get attached easily, but there was just something about them that stuck out among the crowds of pompous students that he usually tried to ignore. But of course he hadn't told them how he felt. Today was another routine day as Shinsu headed towards the school gym for some physical training when a voice hit his ears, a familiar voice that made his heart flutter. He stopped in his tracks and hid around the corner before he was seen, their back turned to him as they spoke with several other students. "Did you see him at the sports festival? I dunno, his quirk is kind of scary, right? He could make someone do anything he wanted. Yeah, he probably didn't get into the hero course because they thought he would be a hazard." Shinsu growled under his breath. They were talking about him, he knew it. These types of things were common even now when he proved how much he wanted to be a hero despite not getting into the hero course. The same SHT he heard in middle school. Just then a stern voice spoke up. And what they said made him gasp. "No way, you're totally wrong. Think about how powerful his quirk would be against villains. He could them down easily and quickly without casualties. He could just tell them stop, give up and they do it. He should totally be in the hero course, they just can't see Shinsu's potential." The people they were talking to were silent, and so was Shinsu, his heart nearly beating out of his chest at their invigorating and supportive words. After the sports festival his friends, his true friends, saw his potential, but there were still others who were skeptical and scared of his quirk. But they weren't. And that's when he decided that, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, he'd tell them how he felt. Eyes drifted across the room, again, distracting Kirishima from the reading work he should be doing. He gripped his textbook, crinkling the pages before returning back to the blur of type on the page in front of him. It didn't take long for his eyes to drift again. At first things were simple, friendly, casual. He saw you in action during training, in awe at how you used your quirk. Kirishima naturally gravitated towards strong people, seeing them as respectable in their ability to jump into the fray without hesitation. It's part of the reason he was so drawn to Bakugo despite his less-than-friendly demeanor towards most people. It was just admiration. Things started to shift over time, however. The more Kirishima hung out with you, the more attached he got. He realized something was off when the sound of your laughter made his palms sweaty, when your smile made his face feel hot, when the way you said his name made his throat go dry. But he couldn't tell you once he realized his feelings went farther than just simple friends. He was boring, average, plain. His quirk wasn't anything ostentatious, it didn't make him stand out among the crowd. Hell, Tetsu in 1B had a quirk almost identical to his own. What was special about him? Would you ever choose him over someone with a better quirk, stronger, more charming? Nah, you'd never choose him. He'd settle for friend. Yeah, that was fine by him. Except it wasn't. Oi! Pay attention, shitty hair. Bakugo slammed his book down on his desk, jarring Kirishima out of yet another daydream. Can't believe I agreed to tutor you when you're not even paying attention. Sorry Bakugo. Just have some stuff on my mind is all, Kirishima confessed, scratching the back of his neck nervously. Bakugo was aware of his crush, and was assuredly getting annoyed at Kirishima's lack of backbone in just telling their classmate how he felt, already. Just thing tell YN already. You're always talking about manly SHT right? So SCK it up already. Bakugo was never one to hold back when it came to honesty, which was usually refreshing for Kirishima. This was a sore subject, however, since it dealt with insecurities that no one really knew about. Maybe, I dunno, man. Rejection essay. I'll think about it. Bakugo growled but let the subject drop seeing Kirishima's wistful expression. A couple of days passed and, of course, Kirishima kept his mouth shut which set off Bakugo even more. He decided to take things into his own hands to move things along. It was an average day during lunch, everyone gathered around their usual tables. However, Kaminari was the first to notice that Bakugo was missing, and even though he seemed unenthusiastic about lunch at times, he never missed a proper meal considering how much his quirk took out of him. Yo, you seen Bakugo? He was in class earlier, Kaminari questioned. Kirishima, Zero, and Mina shook their heads. Looking around the room, however, Kirishima nearly choked on his lunch. There was Bakugo, all right, talking to his crush. To her face. Standing very closely. He didn't even like her that much, but tolerated her presence because he knew of Kirishima's massive crush. So why? Don't pass up this opportunity, YN, I'm a great effing catch. Bakugu's words from across the room echoed in Kirishima's ears, and before he realized what he was doing, Kirishima stood up from the lunch table and marched over to your table, determined look on his face. There was no way Bakugu was trying hit on you, not on his watch. Sorry, bro, but I gotta talk with YN for a second, Kirishima stated, voice surprisingly steady as he grabbed your hand, leading you out of the cafeteria outside into the courtyard. Bakugu smirked to himself, hoping his plan worked before grabbing lunch. Can't believe this, bros don't pull that eating, so unmanly, muttering to himself, you finally yanked your hand free of his grip when you two were alone. Hey! What's wrong? You seemed kinda angry back there, you said, concern lining your features making Kirishima's expression soften just a bit. He then realized what he was doing and nearly froze on the spot, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. But if he lied, then he'd look like a weirdo, leading you outside for no reason. DMN his impulse control. Your hand waved in front of his face, bringing him back to attention. Hello, Earth to Kirishima. What's the deal? Sorry, well, it was now or never, right? Just like Crimson Riot would say, no regrets. I saw Bakugu talking to you and I got, I dunno, jealous. Because I like you, okay? You're super strong and your quirk is cool and you're really pretty and respectable and manly and dash, you pressed a gentle finger to his lips, shutting up his train of thought. Jealous, here. And you really think all that stuff? Now it was your turn to feel embarrassed. You'd always had a crush on the redhead, but didn't want to ruin your friendship in case he didn't return your feelings. He nodded vigorously, making you smile. Well, the only thing to do is make sure Bakugu doesn't get another chance. What do you say? Wanna give this a shot? The bright grin of realization that spread across his face lit a fire in your chest before he picked you up and spun you around, laughter filling the courtyard. The day was average and boring, and Bakugu hated days just like this. Nothing exciting happened, his body moving through the motions of monotony. Having finished his homework early, because of course he did, Bakugu's mother sent him on an errand for groceries. He grumbled the entire way to the store. Can't believe that old hag can't buy DMN groceries herself, he muttered out through gritted teeth as he walked in the automatic doors of the store a few blocks from his home. After grabbing up the things from his mother's list, he went to the snack aisle to get something for himself. He had money, and she didn't have to know, right? Not being the biggest fan of sweets, he reached forward to grab a bag of extra spicy chips. In his dedicated ability to tune out the chatter of pedestrians and annoying adults, he didn't notice someone else grabbing for the exact same bag of chips. These are mine. Back off, grab your own, he yelled out, swatting their hand away before snatching up the bag and tossing it into the grocery cart before turning away with a huff. He stopped short, however, when he noticed something odd on his hand. A spot, a blemish, a stain. It was an odd color, too. Rubbing at it with his free hand, it didn't come off. What the hell is this 𝐒𝐻𝐻? A tap on his shoulder made his head spin. It was the idiot who tried to steal his chips. What do you dash? But they held up a hand to his face, and there it was, a spot mirroring his own, except this one was bright orange. His mouth curled into a sneer. We might have an issue, they said, looking from their hand to Bakugu's, face dusted pink. It took a minute for him to comprehend the implication before it hit him. And oh, it hit hard, ears warm and face red. His soulmate, really? It was honestly something he hadn't thought about because it wasn't on his list of priorities, his number one goal of course being the top hero of his time. He couldn't let romance or distractions get in his way. But, now that he was looking at this total stranger, they weren't half bad looking. Like, at all. And that sessed him off even more. Without warning he grabbed their wrist, abandoning the cart in the store as he led them out through the doors. Groceries could wait. Todoroki walked down the familiar hallways of UA like he always did, the hustle and bustle of students and teachers echoing off the tiled floors like a purposeful march. He'd just returned from the library, grabbing a couple of books to use for extra study practice. While he was normally good about looking where he was going, a particularly enticing chapter engrossed him, keeping his eyes on the pages and off the hallway in front of him. Suddenly someone bumped his shoulder, causing him to drop his book. Oh, someone said behind him. Sorry, didn't mean to run into you. Let me help. While Todoroki dropped his book, they'd let slip a slew of papers now coating the scuffed floor. "Ah, it's all right," Todoroki replied. "I should have watched where I was going." He leaned forward to help them grab some papers at the exact same time they did. Fingers brushed, both pulling their hands away quickly. Before he could say anything else, though, Todoroki's gaze was focused on his finger where a distinct ring of color now formed. What's this?" he asked himself. "Oh," he heard the other person say. Oh gosh, really? Here. You!" they exclaimed, hands flying to their burning cheeks. "I'm guessing you know what this means, then," he asked innocently, holding up his hand. "Because, I'm not sure. Is it your quirk?" Their hands lowered from their face, starting at him with sparkling eyes. "You don't know?" He shook his head in reply. Well, these symbols form when two soulmates touch for the first time, the last words leaving their mouth in an embarrassed whisper. "Ah," was all Todoroki could say. Until it actually hit him. "Wait, soulmates. As in?" They nodded, and now his cheeks were the ones burning. "Maybe we should meet up after school. To talk?" they asked, picking up the last of the spilled papers and handing Todoroki's book back to him with shaking hands. Yeah, sure." Looking at them again, his heart fluttered. Though he didn't even know their name, he could already see himself falling in love. It was just supposed to be a normal fight against an average villain. And he was winning. At least he was, until he started shrinking, smaller, until he was less than half his original height. A shrinking quirk. No, looking at his hands, they were pudgy and short and he no longer fit in his hero costume properly. Kirishima. Oh God, what happened? A familiar voice made his head turn as his SO came running at him, a concerned look on their face. For some reason he felt like crying. "You're so little now." "Oh no, Simu, don't cry." They wrapped him up in his oversized costume and picked him up as he clung to the front of their shirt, fat tears rolling down his now pudgy cheeks. "So Kirishima said, sniffling. "Hey, it's okay, manly men cry, too. I assume this quirk will wear off at some point. Are you hungry?" Kirishima, now approximately a 3-year-old, nodded enthusiastically at the mention of food, sadness forgotten for the time being. They carried him to their home, setting him down on the couch as he scared his thumb. "Geez, you're a cute kid. Sit still and I'll get you a snack." "No," he yelled, an adorable pout on his face. Pick me up. Pick me up." His SO sighed before picking him up again and carrying him to the kitchen. "Cute, but clingy. All right, let's see. I don't really have baby food here. How about cereal? Candy?" "No candy, you need real food candy." He pounded his little fists into their shoulder, about to throw a tantrum if he did not get some candy in his mouth soon. "Cereal or you're going down for a nap." The raised voice and threat of a nap made his big red eyes water. Oh no, sorry, fine. Candy it is." The tears dried up as quickly as they appeared. After cleaning up a mess of candy wrappers, they managed to brush his sharp teeth for him. He really did not like the taste of toothpaste, but too bad. Wrapped up in a blanket, toddler Kirishima was now skinning his thumb watching one of the few animated movies you owned, eyes looking sleepy but still glued to the screen. "I'm tired. Babysitting is tiring. Hopefully you'll turn back tomorrow," they yawned out. They both fell asleep on the couch, the movie still playing in the background. The distinct sound of loud snoring woke them up, drool seeping into the old couch cushions as they felt a heavy weight on top of them. A grown-up Kirishima was snuggled up into their chest, strong arms wrapped around them like a pillow. The blanket he was wrapped in just barely covered everything since his hero costume didn't fit the previous day, making his SO blush furiously. Wake up, ding dong." They pinched his nose until Kirishima sputtered awake, sitting up from the couch rubbing the sleep from his pretty red eyes. "Hey, what? Oh, hey." I turned back. Kirishima looked at his SO. "Thanks for taking care of me yesterday. Sorry I ate all your candy, "You aren't so bad as kid, glad to have you back though," they said, giving him a kiss on the cheek. "Now, please put on some clothes." "Why am I naked?" "Get back here, USHT. Bakugu yelled at the villain who dodged and skittered around fleeing civilians. He jumped into the air ready to tackle them to the ground when he suddenly fell flat on his face. What? He never missed. What happened? Bakugu! He heard his SO yell behind him. They were following the villain as well, but of course he wanted to be the one to catch him. Where are you? I hear. What? His voice? What the hell was wrong with his voice? Baku, oh my god. You're a baby. His SO finally caught up and they stood, quite a bit taller than him now, looking down with a questioning expression. I not. Bakugu yelled, his face turning red from frustration. He wasn't a kid, he was a big boy. They tried unsuccessfully to hold back a laugh. He tried to kick them in the leg for good measure but tripped over his now oversized hero costume, tears welling up in his angry eyes. Oh, 𝐒𝐿, don't cry. They picked him up off the ground, wiping the tears from his face. He struggled in their arms, not wanting to be picked up or treated like the temporary child he was. Hold still. Put me down. People around were starting to stare at this point, so his SO decided it was best to move away from the public lest someone call the police on a negligent non-parent. They wrapped him up in his hero costume like a cocoon, carrying him like a swaddled bundle to their home. I'm so sorry, Bakugu, you'll probably turn back soon. But until then you gotta be a good boy, alright? If you are, I'll give you a treat. He sat in a comfy armchair struggling out of his makeshift wrappings with an angry face, but the word treat made him stop. If there was one thing that motivated him right now, it was the possibility of a reward. He could be a good boy, the best boy there ever was. I good. Oh, that's my boy. Now sit here for a minute, okay. They left him alone for only a second, wanting to find some clothing to put him in, but while sifting through their drawers a pair of small hands clung to their breed's leg. What's wrong? Baby Bakugu rubbed his face into their breaths, hiding his embarrassment. You left, I'm right here, don't worry. They found an oversized shirt to put him in that acted like a long blanket. Want to play hide and seek? Wanting to tire him out, they hoped a couple of games would make the day go by faster so he'd turn back quicker. Unfortunately, little Bakugu was bustling with energy and wore them out before he was even close to tired. They ummed on the bed, Bakugu jumping up and down using it as a trampoline. 𝐒𝐿. It was weird having a toddler for a boyfriend, but he still made a pretty, adorable kid. After a tickle fight, Bakugu's big red eyes finally started to close, tired from the day's activities. Sleepy, he cuddled up next to them on the bed as he promptly fell asleep. They pulled the covers over him before settling in as well. Yeah, me too, good night, Baku. Bakugu woke up first, unfamiliar smells making his nose scrunch up. His arm was wrapped around something warm and soft. Oh. He was in his SO's bed, an arm draped around them. Memories of the previous day flooded back as he growled, waking up the other person in the bed. Before they could speak, though, he put a rough hand over the mouth, eyes glaring daggers. Tell no one, he gritted out before pulling them in close and closing his eyes to drift back off to sleep, enjoying a few more moments of warm comfort before settling back into adulthood. You looked at your abysmal test score and cursed under your breath in Spanish, catching Kaminari's attention in front of you. Here. What did you say? He asked. Oh, nothing, I talk 𝐒𝐻𝐺 sometimes in Spanish. A mischievous grin broke out on his face. No way. Teach me something. You immediately got a horrible, terrible idea. Okay, soy un gran maniquí, Kaminari. It means I am very smart. He repeated it slowly back to you as you tried your hardest not to crack a smile as he insulted himself thinking it was a compliment. Every time he said it, you nodded in approval thinking no one else understood what you were actually saying. Over the next couple of weeks you'd mutter out phrases to the delight of your friends and classmates, thinking you were saying something brilliant and appealing, when in reality you were just spitting out toilet humor. Oh, wow, Spanish is a really pretty language, Momo mentioned one day after you'd exclaimed something about bananas and nuts but made it sound as elegant as possible. You had no idea Bakugu was biting his tongue in the opposite corner of the classroom trying not to laugh. It's not all that difficult to learn, But yes, it's very different from Japanese in how you pronounce words and string letters together, even the grammar is different. She was diligently taking notes, probably thinking that knowing a second language as a pro hero couldn't hurt, especially if they ever ran into people in help who might not speak Japanese. The one person who you couldn't seem to impress, however, was Bakugo. It was agitating because you were hoping to get him interested in you with some fancy Spanish talk, but he seemed completely uninterested in what you said. Sure, you knew he couldn't understand you, but everyone else thought the language was impressive, so why didn't he seem to give a SHT? You were totally unaware that Bakugo knew exactly what you were saying and had become an expert in the art of keeping a straight face whenever you cracked a dirty joke. Kaminari insulted himself for weeks, much to Bakugo's amusement, and Kirishima told everyone constantly that their ass cheeks dragged the ground when he thought he was saying something about manly confidence. As stupid as the whole situation was, it made him laugh, and if you could make him laugh, well, he was done for. One day during a silent study period, you caught yourself staring at the back of Bakugo's head for the sixth time that day. You honestly weren't sure, but it made your cheeks flush. Bakugo es tan lindo, hola me invita una cita con él, you muttered under your breath, knowing no one else could understand you. The snap of a pencil brought your eyes up to the source of the sound. Bakugo sat, fist clenched, half a pencil in his hand, the other half clattering to the floor. He bit his tongue for a completely different reason this time, having nothing to do with dirty jokes. I'm so tired, Ashido groaned, sliding down onto Uraraka's bedroom floor. All the girls had piled into her bedroom since it was the most sparsely decorated. At first she was a bit offended since she couldn't afford a lot of fancy decorations, in order to discuss the growing concern they'd nicknamed the Purple Menace. "He's so gross," Hagekyu chimed in, pumping a fist in the air though no one could really see it. "Getting him to leave us alone is like extra homework." Tsuyu nodded in agreement with the others. "He isn't very heroic, honestly, he's inappropriate. If anything, we could make the case to the school that he's a distraction to our studies." Though a bit timid, Momo put in her 2 cents as well, being one of the main targets of his attention. "I'm still wondering how the heck he passed the entrance exam," Gyro groaned, absent-mindedly twirling one of her ear jacks around her finger. "You remember his fight with Zero against Midnight, when he puts his mind to something he's actually sorta smart." Uraraka thought back to the fight against the teachers, surprised that he actually managed to hold his own and win, but his motivation for winning and being a hero was still disgusting. "You should be a hero to help people, not to get a date. The teachers aren't gonna do anything unless he does something serious," Jiru said. "What? Like everything he's already done isn't serious?" Mina spat out. "He's tried to peep on us in the dorms and in the locker room and even during training. I'm so sick of that jerk face. We must consider this carefully. Maybe if we all went to Principal Nezu together and voiced our concerns, they might listen. A group has a strong pull than just one of us." "Momo has a good point, but we might need a backup plan," Uraraka mumbled. "Something solid. Something foolproof. Something to get him kicked out." They spent the rest of the night stuffing themselves with snacks and discussing various strategies to try over the next couple of weeks to rid themselves of the Purple Menace. A week later. What? Expelled? You can't be serious." Mineta yelled, loud enough to echo through the principal's door and into the hallway where half the class was listening. After another minute of muffled voices, the door opened, Aizawa scruting Mineta through the halls and out the doors of UA for the last time. All the girls circled around the door, eyed each other knowingly, glad that one of their plans actually worked. There would definitely be a secret celebration that night, letting no one in on the scheme outside of their group. The girls won. You sat on the couch as your knee tapped up and down, the anxiety of the situation unable to be contained without a nervous tick as you waited for him to get home. You knew this was an important meeting to discuss some kind of undercover operation. Despite knowing Hawks was the number 2 ranked hero and was completely capable of handling most situations, it didn't stop you from worrying. The front door opened, though your knee continued to tap. "Hey," he said eagerly, tossing off his shoes at the door along with his goggles. "Whatcha doing just sitting around?" He came up behind the couch and leaned down to place a quick peck on the side of your head. "How was the meeting?" you asked, eager to know more information and what to expect out of this whole thing. Oh, you know. Boring lame people trying to tell me boring lame stuff, not much of a surprise there, he said with an airy laugh. Despite his demeanor, you could tell by the stiffness in his shoulders and wings that there was more he wasn't telling you. What about the operation? What are they asking you to do? Did you accept? You bombarded him with questions, ignoring the idea of being intrusive for the sake of your own sanity. His smile faltered for just a second before walking over and placing a gloved hand on your shoulder. Don't worry, 𝐼𝐵, I have to worry, so it's no good telling me not to. Hawks mulled over being honest. He had to know you wouldn't jeopardize the mission first. If I tell you, it can't leave this space and you cannot tell anyone. I know, my lips are sealed, you said, making a zipper motion across your lips. They're asking me to go undercover for the League of Villains. I'm a double agent. I have to convince them I'm working against the heroes to find out as much intel as I can on what they are planning. Your eyes went wide with the influx of information. So they're asking you to just go along with whatever they are planning then, even if people get hurt. They said I'm up to the task, as they put it, since I really don't care about fame or rank. If it ultimately helps people in the end, I'll do it. Your throat closed up at the thought of putting himself in that type of dangerous position right next to the most wanted villains, trying to gain their favor while not revealing his true intentions. This was a dangerous game, indeed. Now, I know this sounds bad, a little. You winced. If you're calm, I'm calm. They picked me knowing I'd be best at playing the field. I can do this. He was confident in his abilities, as you knew, though the thought of something bad happening still lingered like a smell you couldn't place. It would stain your nostrils until the mission was over and you knew he was safe. He wrapped an arm around your shoulders and pulled you into him, his wings folded against his back. I'll be fine, I promise. Just be here waiting for me, yeah. You know it. You couldn't help but smile at the thought of him being home, and to him home was you. You really shouldn't do their homework for them, Todoroki stated as he walked with you to class. You were carrying an extra set of books after accepting to do someone's homework for them, just this once. Don't worry, I'm just helping them out this one time, it's fine. I won't make a habit of it or anything, you replied with a smile, setting him at ease. Just don't overdo it, we have enough from Aizawa-sensei as it is. With a nod you both headed to class, arms weighed down with work you knew would keep you up well past your normal bedtime schedule. The bags under your eyes the next day didn't give Todoroki hope that you kept your promise. He knew you were a bit of a bleeding heart, wanting to help everyone whenever possible, even at the expense of your own health. As often as he tried to stick up for you and tell people to do their OWN work, he couldn't stop every single person in the hallway who came up to you asking for help. After a couple more weeks of this, you actually fell asleep during lunch, prompting him to plan an intervention. Now it was not only affecting your sleep, but your health as well when he noticed your sluggish movements during training and heavy eyelids during study sessions. It's me, are you awake? Todoroki asked as he knocked on your dorm room door, determined to get you to actually listen to him this time. You slowly opened the door, and though you rubbed the sleep from your eyes, the lights on behind you and your lack of pajamas told him you were still awake and working. Hey, Sho, what's we need to talk. His tone left little room for debate as you gave in and let him through the door. He sighed, looking around your room, seeing open textbooks and scattered papers across your desk and bed before turning around. Expression softening at your tired face, he just shook his head. You have to slow down, I can tell it's affecting you way more than you're admitting. Other people's work isn't your responsibility. Scratching your arm you gave him a guilty took, knowing he was right. I know, I've been so tired lately, I just hate saying no to people. It feels like I'm letting them down when they need help. Todoroki walked over and pulled you to him, wrapping you up in his arms, one side slightly cooler than the other. Sometimes it's okay to be selfish and think of yourself first. If you can't, maybe I have to be selfish for you and make you take care of yourself. No excuses. You settled into his arms, fingers interlocking behind him as you closed your eyes, ready to drift off to sleep. Sorry, I know I could be stronger and shouldn't let people push me around. Don't apologize. Having empathy makes you strong, but you've got to think of yourself sometimes, too. How can you help people when you're falling asleep on your lunch tray? At that you had to laugh because it was horribly terribly true, and you resented having rice in your hair for the rest of the day. Alright, I promise to take care of myself. Deal. He patted your head, ready to shove the books and paper to the side and put you to bed as you slumped against him. Deal. After seeing you so worn down and tired, and knowing you were too nice of a person to directly confront the people involved, Todoroki decided to take it upon himself to make sure you weren't the one doing other people's work anymore. It took some subtle, or not so subtle, coaxing to get you to spill the names of the ones bothering you all the time. 𝐬𝐽, please don't do anything, I was just trying to help. I know you were, because you're a nice person. But they should know better than to take advantage of kindness when too openly offered. You sighed but knew he would get the names one way or another as you rattled them off, and he nodded in time with your voice, memoizing them and noting what classes they were in. He managed to catch most of them gathered in a group at lunch one day. Todoroki was terrible at being subtle, so he didn't even attempt to hide his agitation as he sauntered up to them in the cafeteria. Oh, who's Dashi? Isn't that Dasher? The group made to move from their table, but an immediate chill hit the air, freezing their blood cold as Todoroki sauntered up and blocked their path. Let's have a chat, he said a little too coolly. He doesn't bother sitting, why sure. No problem, one of them manages to mutter out through clattering teeth. I hear you're the ones who've been giving, no, pushing is more the word, all your homework on YN. Is that right? No one answers and half of the group avoids his gaze, giving him all the answer he needs. I see. She's quite tired, you know. Doing all your work for you, giving you good grades under false pretenses. It makes me upset to see her struggle because she's too kind to turn down someone wanting a favor, even if that favor is selfish. So she won't anymore, understand? It wasn't phrased as a question. Todoroki thawed the air just enough to let them nod their head vigorously, a round of agreements and assurances echoing at the lunch table. Absolutely. We won't bother her anymore. We promise. Good, was all Todoroki said before walking off, turning on his heel without so much as a second glance in their direction. He'll never openly admit to how much he cares about his own grades. Half of it is built up from pure spite and wanting to retain his position within the top 3 of the class with his schoolwork. He's a giant nerd, but no one will openly admit that to his face. He also goes to bed early and gets up early, never missing a wink of proper sleep. His quirk tires him out, and he knows getting a good night's rest is important for retaining information properly and paying attention in class. You, however, have a harder time with studying than he does. It takes you twice the amount of time to understand the same amount of information. Bakugo is aware of this, so whenever there's an exam coming up he takes it upon himself to drill whatever he can into your head with rabid determination after you return to your own room. Though you continue to study well past your proper bedtime, he notices your lack of sleep, and while he's less than pleased, he slips you snacks throughout the day to keep your energy up and to make sure you're eating properly. The night before the exam he kicks in your door and forces a surprise quiz on you. Luckily you only get one answer wrong, which he seems not so bad. I guess he'll then make you go to sleep despite the hour and tucks you in with a glare, muttering something about how tired you look, or, if you're late to class I'll kick your butt, leaning down to whisper in your ear he says if you ace it he'll take you out to that restaurant you've been nagging about recently. It was a rare gesture for him to offer up a proper date, so you smile and lean up, giving him a peck on the cheek before turning around to sleep. His, of course, flustered but says nothing as he quietly lets himself out of the room, is the kind of teacher that students like because he's not as strict as other teachers. His fun while also making sure they learn everything they need to be a proper hero, at least when he's in the classroom. If they're doing quirk training he turns into a hardass, making sure everyone pushes themselves to the limit to get the most out of their quirks. He knows firsthand how hard it is to break through insecurities to get the most out of quirks, pays special attention to students who seem insecure about their quirks, those who think their quirks are boring or lame or not strong enough. He's great at encouraging them and tells them that despite being a pro and teacher now, he was in their position at their age. One day a new teacher starts at UA, teaching one of the other first-year classes. He's always excited to meet new people, so of course he goes to the teacher break room to introduce himself. Well, he wasn't the only one with that idea. Seeing a group of teachers surrounding the new person, eventually makes his way to them but stops, a single thought running through his head. Oh no, they're cute. Manages to stammer out an introduction. They recognize him immediately from the spiky red hair, commenting on his work as pro and how they're eager to get any tips on teaching the new students. He's scratching the back of his head nervously, brushing off the compliments, but says he's always open to discussing teaching techniques. Well, he ends up spending more time in the break room than usual and develops a liking to coffee just so he can talk to them more, stirring up casual conversation whenever he gets the chance. One day while on patrol, a villain attacks a crowd. Of course, he goes straight into hero mode and is about to take down the villain when someone else beats him to it. Turns out it's the new teacher he's developed a crush on, and they're super buddies. Doki goes his manly heart. After a few weeks, he finally gathers up the courage to ask them out on a date, outside the prying eyes of UA and his students, who would surely make fun of him and pry into his personal life. They agree, and the rest is history. His students eventually find out because they can immediately tell he's acting differently in class and tease him. He makes them run extra laps for being smartest is ahead of him, always ahead of him in some way or another. Light and weightless and free as if you didn't have a care in the world, kind words and helpful actions, always just an outstretched hand away. You embodied the sun, warm, comforting, energetic, life-giving. And here he was, still stuck in the shadows of the past. Todoroki was severely aware of his misgivings when it came to his personality and how he acted around other people. He hadn't exactly grown up in the most nurturing environment, so he was sort of learning as he went. Even so, everyone, especially you, seemed so far ahead, too far for even your hand to reach. Your laughter was like music, your smile like a appealing painting. More than once he caught himself staring, turning away in shame, knowing you were something he couldn't catch up to. Hey guys! Ready for training today? I know it'll be awesome. You said while laughing, giving Ochako a playful punch to the arm and Midoriya a noogie. Why and you're in a good mood today? Ida exclaimed, always observant of the obvious. Yeah, but that's really nothing new for you, though. You're always so cheerful, Ochako agreed, giving you a playful tap back. Yeah well, gotta counteract me being trash and all that. Why? Midoriya stuttered out. Come on, let's get changed. You dragged all three of them out the door to the training area, Todoroki standing off to the side. Left behind yet again. Training day was average, nothing extraordinary. But maybe something snapped in Todoroki. Seeing you talk so easily with everyone else, crack jokes, sometimes at your own expense, made him almost jealous. What if someone asked you out and you said yes? Then he'd truly never catch up to your light. And he was tired of living in the shadows of other people. As class was filing out and you gathered up your books, someone touched your shoulder gently. Looking up, you were met with Todoroki's appealing eyes, the very same ones you hoped he never caught you staring into. Oh, hey Todoroki-kun. How are you? Wanna go out with me? Stunned silence. What? Todoroki cleared his throat, but didn't break eye contact. Sorry. I meant, will you go out with me? I like you. All he could think to do was be completely honest with how he felt. He wasn't poetic, couldn't write a lengthy confession note, so the best he could do was string together simple words that made sense and were completely true. I'll like a date. Yeah. Oh come on, you don't wanna date me, I'm such a loser, no. So ditzy and clumsy, haha. It was a defense mechanism, resorting to putting yourself down first so you couldn't be hurt if other people did it. Todoroki was taken aback by your words. Loser. You're not a loser at all, though. All you could think to do was laugh. But I am, though. Just a big old trash can, that's me. Todoroki reached forward and put his hands on your shoulders to stop your fidgeting. Don't put yourself down. You're tangible light, you make people happy, you're strong, you have good friends. And my confession isn't a joke. I meant what I said. You were stunned into silence. Everyone usually brushed off your jokes, went along with the GG, even joined in every once in a while. But Todoroki was building you up, separating the joke from the girl. Todoroki-kun. Sorry. I dunno why I say SHT like that sometimes. But, thanks. I mean it. And yeah, I'll go out with you. A smile appeared on his face, and you smiled back. Despite the large expansive castle being constantly filled with bustling servants and guests, It always felt slightly empty for Bakugu, many rooms on many floors dusty with little use. King Bakugu wasn't exactly a stickler for making sure every corner was scrubbed clean. Why waste the time when there were more rooms than he could ever use? Today he sat on the throne, the familiar look of annoyance etched into his handsome features as he waited to be called for lunch, fingers drumming on the delicately carved wood. He clicked his tongue impatiently. "Teethage, fools, better hurry it up, I'm hungry as hell." As if on cue, you appeared from a side entrance and stopped before the king, bowing low before speaking. "Your Highness, lunch is prepared and ready for you." With a grunt he kicked himself up from the oversized chair before descending the short staircase down to the main floor level. "Well, get a move on then." He bit out before you straightened up and led him towards a set of doors. You were never sure why, but you were the only allowed to give him announcements and lead him to wherever he needed to go within the large castle. To be honest, Bakugu wasn't sure why himself. Everyone was so stuck up, so prim and proper, so frightened of him that they just felt like annoying pebbles in his way, staying for the promise of fair pay and a place to sleep, but you were different. His brash attitude and gravely voice didn't scare you off, he could see it behind your eyes, taking it almost as a challenge. You didn't try to correct his more barbaric behavior or rude actions. He was who he was, and that was that. You stood by as he ate, tearing meat off bones and shoving bread into his mouth before washing it down with a goblet of bitter red wine. He rarely spoke when he ate, and he always ate alone, so it seemed like a privilege that you were allowed to stand by, even if it was just as an assistant. As the months rolled past, various suitors appeared at his door to try for his hand in marriage. Of course, no one really wanted to wed him. It was strictly a power play for his property, power, and expansive reach over his kingdom. And he knew it, which was why he rudely dismissed every single one that showed up, tossing aside their gifts of gold and jewels like rubbish. "Get out of my sight." Bakugu growled to yet another potential suitor, this one traveling weeks just to reach him and present him with a chest of jewels. "I don't care about this as the hell do I need more gold for?" You heard. "Our king, remove yourselves at once." You ordered, several guards coming in and escorting the fuming suitor and their entourage out of the castle. You weren't sure why, but every time someone came to ask for Bakugu's hand in marriage, it made your stomach curl into knots. "Teethage, absolute garbage, every single one." Bakugu scoffed as he walked down from the throne, a peeling cape billowing behind him clashing with the agitated scowl on his face. As he passed you, he snapped his fingers, signaling for you to follow. You did. He walked silently down multiple hallways, several guards and servants bowing as he walked by until he made it to his massive bedroom. You stepped in behind him before he slammed the door shut and made his way to the large window overlooking his kingdom, arms crossed and shoulders tense. You waited for him to speak. "Tell me, why do they insist on continuing this game? They think I'm just gonna marry whoever presents to me the most jewels, or the most attractive of them, or the one with the most land. Pointless, they don't know me at all, so why do they bother?" You chose your words carefully before speaking. "To be honest, my king, they envy you, I assume. They want what you have, power, glory, the resolve to conquer anyone and everyone in your path, but they don't want you, for they do not know you, they only know what they hear through fireside chatter and rumors. They are fools." For a while Bakugu did not move from his spot, stoic as dust particles danced in the light beam streaming in from the large window, until he turned to meet your gaze, red eyes staring right through you. "And what of you, here? Why do you stick around despite knowing how I really am? Do you stay for a warm bed and shelter? For NTMT knowledge of my kingdom's workings?" "I stay," you hesitated, eyes steady against his red pupils. "Because how you think you are, how others think you are, is not how you really are. You call yourself cruel, and maybe the things you did to reach your current position weren't exactly noble, but you are not bad. Not at all. You are my king, and I am loyal to you because I see you as you truly are." Slowly Bakugu made his way across the bedroom, eyes never leaving yours, stopping just shy of stepping on your toes. "Is that so? And what do you see?" A hand came up to lightly brush invisible dirt off your shoulder. Though your nerves were firing rapidly, something stirred in your heart to urge you on. "I see someone who is brutally honest and strong, not just of body but of spirit and mind." Someone who knows what he wants and will fight for it at all costs. And what do you think I want? His words were slow and heavy on his tongue as if dripping through a pool of syrup. Your hands folded behind your back fidgeted, glad he could not see your sweaty palms. I cannot say, my king. Only you know that. Ruby eyes smoldering like a pit of fire almost swallowed you whole as he leaned forward, breath hot against your ear. I turn the idiots away, every single one, because they are not you. No gold in all the kingdoms could equate to the worth of your king's affections. You had nothing to give him but honesty and trust, and he accepted both greedily and without regret. Weeks passed by and not a single whisper was uttered openly of the secret relationship with your king. Bakugo was private, and it wasn't anyone else's business who he was involved with anyway. You continued your assistant roles normally, announcing when there were guests, leading him when food was ready, sitting in on agonizingly boring meetings about taxes or future war plans in the case of a surprise attack or invasion. The only hint at something outside routine normalcy was an outstretched hand that gripped yours tightly as you silently stepped through the threshold to his chambers in the darkest of nights with only the moon illuminating your steps through familiar hallways. You were always back in your own room before morning despite the tug in your heart wishing to wake up to the smell of burnt caramel and firewood. One day, as you made your way through the halls of the castle while your king was away for the day on personal matters, someone bumped into you, nearly causing you to drop the stack of papers in your arms. Oh, my apologies. No. It's all my fault, let me help you with those, the man who bumped into you said as he bent down to gather up your items. You'd seen him around the castle before, 𝐿, one of the higher-ranking generals who typically kept watch over things while Bakugo wasn't around. Ah, thank you, you said, taking the papers from him, though his grip didn't waver. Looking into his eyes, they were stern and alight with something mischievous. You frowned slightly at his expression as you ripped the papers from him, though he seemed almost amused. He grabbed your arm as you passed, making you jump. You aren't as inconspicuous as you assume, I suggest you watch your back, him. Before you could reply, he stalked off down the hallway whistling a joyful tune as a single bead of sweat ran down your neck. Does he know? You whispered to yourself before gaining back your composure and continuing on your way. When Bakugo returned, he was in a particularly bad mood, growling under his breath at the incompetency of those around him. You stood patiently by the throne to greet him, letting the corners of your mouth tug into a soft smile, until you noticed 𝐿 from the corner of your eye, watching from around a corner at the far end of the main hall. You replaced the smile with a mask. Ugh! It's every single one, Bakugo growled as he stormed towards you. While most in his company feared the wrath of his anger, you stood firm. Welcome back, my king, you said formally, bowing as he neared. With a snap of his fingers, he silently ordered you to follow him, tossing away everyone else in favor of your company. You did not dare look in 𝐿's direction as you straightened and followed Bakugo through the large doors into his now familiar bedchamber. Guards stood outside during the day, which meant an exchange of words must be hushed or silently conveyed through paper or touch. He slammed the door shut with a grunt after you entered. I'm guessing things went sour, you asked, already knowing the answer. Morans wanting more without offering something in exchange. We see possible war on the horizon with the neighboring kingdom. They're restless, and I'll be damned if we're caught off guard. As agitated as he often was, having you by his side was calming, his ruby eyes softening the smallest bit, knowing the secret shared between you. With one glance towards the closed door, he quickly pulled you into a searing kiss, saying all the words he dared not speak openly. I missed you, I want you, you're mine and mine alone. He smirked when the kiss was broken, but dropped the expression seeing your face. What's that look for? You were hesitant to talk, so placing a finger upon his lips, you walked to his desk and scribbled out something quickly on a scrap of parchment before handing it over for him to read. Bakugo snatched it out of your hand and read over it, a livid scowl marring the features you'd seen softened and relaxed under the guise of moonlight and silk bedsheets. A threat, he yelled, not bothering to keep his voice down. I knew hiring that rat was a mistake. F it, come on YN. Grabbing your wrist, he threw open the bedroom door and startled everyone by marching straight back to the throne room with a murderous look on his face, pulling you along behind him. What are you? We're taking care of this is what we're doing, was all he said as he stopped before the throne, looking for the familiar mop of messy black hair and eyes that hid his true intentions. 𝐿𝐴 carried a newly drawn map under his arm as he passed by the room. "You! 𝐿𝐴!" Bakugo yelled, stopping every movement in the entire room and gaining 𝐿𝐴's attention as he turned his head slowly to look at his king. "Yes, my king. F you. Also, get the hell out of my castle. And one more thing," he said with a devious smirk. Bakugo grabbed you by the shoulders and promptly kissed the breath out of you in front of half the castle staff. The clang of a dropped pot and crash of a shattered dish broke through mutterings and gasps as people watched their king lock lips with you, his assistant. You weren't of nobility, you had no money outside of your own pay, and everyone saw you as nothing more than a silent and obedient listener. Bakugo knew better, though. He also didn't care. When he finally broke the kiss, a smug grin of satisfaction lit up his face as your knees almost gave out. He looked 𝐿𝐴 dead in the eye across the room. 𝐿𝐴 looked livid, nearly tearing the rolled-up parchment under his arm, and said, "Get out of my sight." While it came as a shock to the entire castle, most everyone accepted it without question after some time. If their king was content with falling in love with someone like you, then they knew the kingdom was in good hands. The day was appealing and the breeze was clean and cool as 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 sat against a tree, resting in the grass after a long day of exploring the open wilderness of the forest. His eyes closed ready for sleep when he heard a splash nearby, his eyes snapping open in response. hm. Silently he crawled along the dew-stained grass, making his way towards the sound of running water. Red eyes focused from behind a tree towards the river on someone standing at the edge. You carried buckets on their shoulders, dipping low to fill them with cool water, a gentle humming tune making his ears twitch with curiosity. When you turned around he hid behind the tree, careful to avoid being seen. He was aware not all humans appreciated dragons or half-dragons, often hunting or banishing his kind out of fear. As a result he was often lonely, flying from one area to the next in search of companionship. As the human passed by, 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 glanced over his shoulder at you in secret, the pleasant song putting a smile on his face. Because he kept away from town's music was a luxury he often wasn't afforded, though when he did hear it his tail wagged happily. Maybe I should stay for a bit. You came back the next day, and the next, and the next, 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 watching silently from afar as you filled buckets or washed clothes, rarely taking the time to just sit for a moment and enjoy the calm atmosphere of the forest. You did enjoy singing, though, much to 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴's delight. A yelp brought him back to reality as he daydreamed, crimson eyes focusing on the water. The object of his daily attention had accidentally fallen into the river while trying to reach a bucket that had drifted away from them. Great, just a hand extended out towards you, and looking up it was attached to a very cute man with bright red hair and pointy teeth and a tail. And no, please don't be scared. I was just trying to help you out. 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 kept his hand extended and reluctantly you took it, eyes trained on him for any sudden movement as he helped you out of the river, clothes now dripping wet and a bucket lost to the rapids downstream. Are you one of the dragon folk that people talk of? I thought you'd be bigger for some reason. 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 scratched the back of his head nervously, hoping you wouldn't run to town and drive him away. Oh, I'm just half dragon. Don't ask how that happens, I'm not really sure myself. And please don't tell anyone I'm here, most people don't like my kind. He'd helped you out of the water and he seemed friendly enough, so you agreed to keep his existence a secret. Do you live around here? I'm just passing through, exploring really. But I think I'll stick around for a while, it's pretty here. You nodded. It is, well, I have to get back to town. Thanks for helping me, Oh, 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴. I'm 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴. And no problem at all. With that you grabbed their remaining bucket and walked back down the worn path towards town, glancing over your shoulder at 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 before disappearing under the shade of large trees. Days passed easily as you continued to return to the river. 𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐴 found your lost bucket and returned it to you to prove he didn't mean any ill will, and he became a friend, someone to talk with easily and confide in outside of the gossip and drama in town. Despite his more gruff appearance, he was actually very kind and gentle, telling you of different far-off places seen, while also confiding with you about being treated badly by other humans or other dragons being driven out of their homes by people seeking fame and glory. It made your heart sink knowing Kirishima was just looking for a place to call home. The weeks turned into months as the two of you grew closer and closer. Kirishima would fall asleep in your lap, tail wrapping around your legs with a content smile on his face as you hummed him a soft tune. He also enjoyed scratches under the chin and behind the ear, his expressions making you laugh. As winter set in, Kirishima didn't leave, and instead was invited to stay with you in secret within your home, warm and protected from the outside cold and chill. He settled with you under the covers of their bed, huddled neatly and comfortably. Kirishima was naturally a bit warmer than humans, though he still didn't enjoy the cold. Having a bed to sleep in was new as well, but he certainly didn't mind considering present company. His chin rested neatly in the crook of your shoulder, a hand threading through your hair as moonlight cascaded through the closed window into the room. "Why, no, I'm glad I found this place and decided to stay. It kinda feels like home," you answered for him, arms winding around his warm torso. He nodded into your hair. "Yeah, home sounds nice." The winter didn't seem quite so cold anymore. Todoroki groaned into his pillow, tossing and turning in his bed. He'd been trying to fall asleep for at least an hour, but his mind kept wandering and his eyes wouldn't stay closed. He pulled the sheets down, running a hand through his hair as he got up from the bed. "Might as well take a walk, I guess," he muttered, slipping on some shoes and wandering out into the empty dorm hallway. The air outside was cool and refreshing. He inhaled deeply, smelling freshly cut grass, midnight dew, and some faraway smog left over by one of the factory buildings several blocks away. Mostly pleasant scents. Walking down the sidewalk by the dormitories, he stopped after noticing he wasn't alone, the silhouette of someone else sitting on a bench. They were staring up at the sky. "Hello," he called out. Turning their head towards him, he sighed in relief seeing his girlfriend, though he wondered why she was out so late. "Todo, hey. Come sit by me," she answered, waving him over and patting the empty seat beside her on the bench. "What are you doing up? Can't sleep either?" he asked while sitting down, one arm draped over the back of the bench behind you. You nodded. "Yeah, something like that. When I just need to calm down, I come outside and look at the stars, though I wish I could see more of them, thanks, light pollution." Todoroki looked up, the sky dark and the moon bright, surrounded by twinkling lights stationary in an endless expanse above him. "Stars? I don't know a lot about stars. They're nice to look at, though. Do you know any of the constellations? Those are the pictures we drew when certain groups of stars are connected, right?" "Yeah. I like to think about finding hidden beauty in nature, even if it wasn't necessarily intended that way, no." Try as he might, Todoroki couldn't really see any pictures or images, just twinkling lights of dying suns light years away. "Show me some." The next half hour was spent with you pointing out several images above the city, your finger hovering to connect the stars with imaginary lines and explaining the meaning behind specific people or animals. While he saw most of them once they were pointed out, there were a few that still perplexed him, but you didn't need to know that. Eventually you yawned, his arm draped over the back of the bench, coming up to pull you in closer. Getting tired finally?" You rubbed your eyes, vision blurry and eyelids heavy. "Yeah, a little." Todoroki inwardly admitted that he was getting tired as well, thankful for the decision to come outside. "Wanna come up to my room? You can tell me more about constellations. I have extra blankets." You blushed but nodded, standing up from the bench with a groan as you stretched your arms above you. Getting up as well, Todoroki grabbed your hand, leading you back into the building. He wouldn't have any trouble sleeping now. The restroom tiles were like ice on your knees, uncaring and without give as you knelt over the toilet hoping no one walked in, petals falling from your burning throat into the water like lily pads on a pond. Your eyes watered painfully, feeling the last petal leave your tongue and flutter down, hands gripping tightly to the porcelain, hoping beyond hope that no one walked into the bathroom to find you. It was increasingly difficult seeing him around her, but also unavoidable since everyone was in the same classes. You'd tear your eyes away whenever he talked with her, even if it was just asking a simple question about the homework. You'd feel the prickle of petals in your throat if you stared a little too long, thought a little too hard, and felt a little too deeply. So you didn't. And eventually he noticed. You avoided him whenever possible, though gave him no explanation as to why, leaving him to wonder if he'd offended you or made you upset at some point. No one else had an answer when he asked, either. You kept your secret to the confines of your room, the wastebasket hidden under your desk filled with tissues and dried petals. Why, N? Are you all right? Todoroki's voice brought you out of yet another distracting daydream before class started. The lack of sleep from coughing was starting to show in your performance and on your face. You look really tired. Did you not sleep well? It felt like you were swallowing syrup as you talked. Oh yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just had trouble falling asleep is all. I'll take a nap later after class. He looked at you skeptically, but you hoped he'd leave you alone as you felt the familiar tickle in your chest. Can we talk after school? Sorry, I know. You're tired, but I need to ask you something. Hopefully it won't take long. The tug of war in your brain told you to deny him the talk, while your heart held the other end. Your mouth spoke before the rope moved past the center line. Yeah, sure. We can talk. He nodded with a smile before sitting down at his own desk, though you honestly felt like running to the toilet at the prospect of being alone with him. The day sped by far too quickly, and you knew the game was up, unable to avoid him any longer as he cornered you after class. Ready? We can talk outside. He didn't wait for you to answer before he started walking. You followed, head hung low as you caught sight of Momo out of the corner of your eye, quickly turning away as she silently watched Todoroki lead you out of the school. He finally stopped at the side of the building, away from groups of students heading back to the dorms before turning on you abruptly. Do you hate me? He asked. You couldn't help the gasp that escaped your parted lips. What? No. I don't hate you. So why have you been avoiding me? Did I say something to make you mad? He was never one to tiptoe with his words, choosing the most direct approach to get the information he wanted. No, you didn't. I'm not mad. You hesitated, knowing mad was not the correct word to you. It didn't escape Todoroki. What are you then? His look softened and you had to glance away, feeling the creeping whisper of petals in your throat as he spoke. As he reached out towards you, a hand to comfort, no doubt, you backed away before doubling over, hands over your mouth. But it was too late. A single petal swam through the air to the ground, your eyes watery knowing your secret was revealed. You have. Oh, was all Todoroki said. But who it's you, okay, you screamed, spitting another bitter petal out of your mouth. You're the reason. But you're with her and Todoroki looked at you with a confused expression. With who? You wiped the spit from your mouth on the back of your hand, standing up to look him in the eyes you often dreamed of. With Yoirozu. You love her, right? It took a moment to register your words, but after what felt like an eternity to you he shook his head. No, that's not true. I thought, is that why? He bent down to pick up one of the petals, twirling it between his fingers. You should have told me. You don't like her. We're just friends, she's the top student in our class. She's a good tutor. So you've been avoiding me because you assumed I didn't like you. He stepped closer, cupping the back of your head in his hand, slightly cool to the touch, and pulled you into his shoulder. Maybe I should have said something earlier, I'm not very good with this stuff though. Your fingers clawed at his school uniform, feeling the diminishing sensation of petals in your chest until, at last, you could breathe in the smell of him. Oh, no. You didn't have to do that, Momo exclaimed as a delicately wrapped bento box was handed to her by her partner. They always surprised Momo with lunch when she least expected it, brightening up her day. They scratched the back of their head nervously. Don't worry about it. I cooked too much so I just stuffed the extra in a box. No big deal. Momo knew better, however. They cooked too much often enough where she knew it wasn't really an accident. Figuring her partner just really enjoyed cooking, Momo would surprise them with nice utensils and cookware that she materialized with her quirk. The truth was less pleasant, however. After the incident at Kamino and everyone moved into the dorms, Momo observed her partner in the kitchen far more often than she thought was normal. Classes were over. They were in the kitchen. Before class. In the kitchen. Middle of the night. Kitchen. She finally decided to confront them about it one day while they were studying alone. Hey, can I ask you something? Hopefully this isn't too intrusive. Sure, of course. Momo cleared her throat before speaking up. I've noticed that you spend a lot of time in the kitchen downstairs. As in, a lot of time, are you okay? I assumed you just enjoyed cooking as a casual hobby, but now I feel there might be another reason. They looked at Momo with guilty eyes, glancing away from her face. Yeah, I guess. I cook when I'm stressed out. And I guess, with everything that's been happening with all the villain attacks and All Might and just everything, it's sort of overwhelming. Why no? They felt gentle fingers caress their own. But I can control food, I can set the temperature, I can season things perfectly, I can sure it's alright, it's fine. You don't have to explain it. I understand now. Momo held their shaking hands in her own. It's true, a lot has happened. I think everyone is on edge, that's normal. If this is something that helps you, that's fine. Just take it easy, alright. You need sleep, too. They nodded in response, appreciative of their girlfriend's understanding nature. However, a week later, things got out of hand. Most of 1A was hanging out in the shared living space, playing games and watching TV and relaxing when the distinct jingle of a dinner bell was heard from the kitchen, accompanied by a yell. Everyone get in here and help me eat this. Confused, everyone stood up and made their way into the kitchen, immediately bombarded with a spread of delicious smells coming from plates upon bowls upon plates of steaming food. Made too much. Please help me eat this, everyone. Well, they didn't have to be asked twice as most of the class sat down, thanking them for the food before digging in. Momo looked nervously between the massive spread and her partner. Why you made all this? It's so much. Yeah, I know, the stress got to me and I just couldn't stop. But that just means there's more to share. Momo shook her head in concern before forcing them to sit down and eat the food they prepared while she made their favorite tea. So most people know that Kaminari tries to be smooth 24/7, he enjoys attention, and doesn't mind trying to show off every once in a while even if it leaves him babbling like a ding-dong for a while, but really, he has some hang-ups. He's never actually dated anyone before, so his idea of relationships is derived from popular media culture, TV shows, movies, the internet, etc. And he's aware that those portrayals are often idealistic and usually things don't always go the way you plan, which is why he tries so hard to look cool. He's putting up a conscious front hoping no one notices. One day he opens his locker to find a folded note. Opening it reveals it's a confession of sorts. Summarizes they think is cute, his quirk is awesome, and his super cool proceeds to show everyone the note saying he has a secret admirer. Someone bonks him on the head saying it won't be a secret for long if he keeps yelling about it, that they left the note because they might be embarrassed or shy that he won't like them back. Hadn't thought of that point of view, honestly. He's pretty open, so unless there was some major deal breaker like they were a villain or something, then he would probably say yes because it's a date, and he's stoked to actually maybe go on a date with someone. Man, they think I'm cool as hell, alright. Doesn't get another note for a while and he's sorta bummed out, thinking maybe they put it in the wrong locker. Or they changed their mind. Maybe he made too much of a show of things. A couple days later another note appears though, asking if he'd be willing to meet them after classes in the courtyard. So cool, he says, holding onto the note. He sniffs it to see if there's perfume or something on it, but nope, just plain paper overall. If he knows someone has a crush on him, he's nervous because he wants to act tough and awesome, like he has his SHT together all the time. But really he's kinda nervous and hopes he doesn't screw up or say something dumb. The months after your king's unplanned announcement of your formerly secret relationship passed quicker than you expected. Your role within the castle remained the same, attending formal meetings, taking extensive notes on boring subjects, and overall making sure the inner workings of the castle and kingdom ran smoothly outside of Bakugu's own responsibilities. The main difference now was that you no longer had to tiptoe around in the silent shadows of the night as he invited you into his chambers. Instead you woke to the smell of burnt caramel and polished wood and silk sheets, wrapped tightly in his arms as the sun crept up slowly through the large bay window overlooking the kingdom. You couldn't help but smile. Although most within the kingdom came to accept your revealed relationship, others blatantly accused you of gaining his favor in order to steal power for yourself, or admonished the king for choosing someone as lowly and unrefined as yourself. You didn't come from nobility, but Bakugu was even farther removed from that lifestyle than yourself, considering his upbringing among dragonfolk, far away from the constraints and laws governed by most cities. He fought his way to the top and honestly had no care for politics, which is why he left most of the planning and paperwork to you, someone he could trust with such important matters. It was an honor to serve him, and you did so willingly and studiously. You were excellent at your job, and your love for your king held no bearing on your duties. However, Bakugu did not handle words spoken ill of you as well as you did. You grew used to hushed whispers and untrue rumors spoken in seedy taverns. You knew what people talked of when their backs turned as you walked past. He, on the other hand, grew angry. Wretched morons, they don't know what they speak about. How does it not piss you off? He growled out, pacing in his bedchambers with you standing at attention nearby. You merely shrugged at his question. They do not know me just as some still do not know you. Assumptions and rumors hold no bearing to me for they do not know the truth. Bakugu huffed through his nose before staring at you with those ruby eyes that softened only for you. You are more level-headed than I am. Walking over to you, he grabbed your hand, leading you to the large sunlit window. It had the best view from the castle of the kingdom, overlooking the shops and streets and homes below before transitioning into faraway forests and greenery. This is as much yours as it is mine, but they do not see it. Let's fix that. Of all the things you thought he might suggest, your hand in marriage was not one of them. Sure, your relationship was no longer a secret, but from the way he reacted towards past suitors you'd assumed marriage overall wasn't something he cared much for. He never stopped surprising you, though. An extravagant ball and ceremony was not what either of you wanted, deciding to keep it far more low-key. Gold and jewels and pompous displays of wealth did not suit your king who grew up in forests and lived off meat he captured himself. For that reason it was decided that it would be held outdoors, and he would invite whomever he wished, including dragonfolk. People grew nervous at this announcement, but he didn't care. You knew he wouldn't invite intentional danger into the kingdom, so you weren't worried. No, you were honestly far more interested in knowing a very specific red-haired dragon Bakugu talked of often. On the day of the wedding the entire town grew restless as unknown visitors filed in through the streets. Bakugu did not invite outsiders to this event, not giving a DMN if other kingdoms grew angry. This was his, and your, wedding to celebrate, and he would not have anyone there who might cause a scene or ruin a single moment. You watched as Bakugu greeted his friend whom you recognized immediately from the physical description, sharp teeth and hair the color of blazing fire. Despite his rough appearance he was extremely friendly and wished you both enthusiastic congratulations. Though the decorations were minimal, you thought it was appealing. It felt secluded and special, created just for the two of you to enjoy despite the large crowds of townsfolk and castle employees in attendance. Your almost husband was a man of few words and instead relied on actions to convey what he wanted to say. When it came time for the vows his own were short and touching and strong. Your ears shut out every other whisper, every flap of embellished flags highlighting the perimeter, every sniffle Kirishima let loose at his best friend's public confession. You only heard Bakugu, for your king was all that mattered to you in that moment. As soon as the last necessary word was spoken, he pulled you forward and, without another care in the world, kissed you in front of thousands. It was like he was kissing you for the very first time once more, full of passion and longing as his heart thumped wildly in both your chests at the thunderous applause of the crowd. The celebration afterwards was wild and full of heavy drink and laughter, and his ruby eyes always shifted back over to you despite the pull of attention from everyone else. King Bakugu now shared his throne with you, equal weight, equal responsibility, equal love for the kingdom, and no one could ever say otherwise. Bakugu wasn't exactly the type of person to invite just anyone into his personal space. He enjoyed being alone and didn't need people breathing down his neck all the time, the silence of his room a surprising comfort juxtaposing his loud quirk and personality. Which meant he was a ball of nerves knowing this coming Saturday you were coming over to meet his family. His mom was always on his case about his attitude and annoyed the hell out of him every chance she got, so he hoped the old hag wouldn't say anything embarrassing and annoy you to the point of fleeing his house never to return. But you weren't the type of person to judge anyone based on family relations. Bakugu knew he was rough around the edges, but you knew how to put up with him, and honestly, he felt pretty DMN grateful he wound up with someone like you. So, what should I expect? A house full of burn marks, maybe. You asked playfully as Bakugo led you down the street to his house. He just scoffed at your snarky comment. Maybe when I was a dumb baby, just nod your head and give mom compliments because she eats up that tea and you'll be fine. I can do that, sure. With hunched shoulders and fists stuffed into his pockets, Bakugo led you up the sidewalk to a pretty nice-looking house on a nice-looking street. Katsuki, you have a nice house. It's just a house, who cares, he mumbled. He knew he was more well-off than other people but didn't flaunt it since he'd rather be noticed for his fighting skill and control of his quirk. Without bothering to knock, he opened the door and led you inside. The house smelled clean, like the fresh scent of laundry and lemon-scented floor cleaner. As you both kicked off your shoes, someone yelled from the kitchen. You assumed it was his mother. Katsuki, is that you? Yeah, what of it? About time. Hurry up so I can meet Shut up, old hag. Oh, it runs in the family. You couldn't help but tease him, but before he could react, another person entered the room from a side hallway. She had Bakugo's striking red eyes, but her hair was a light brown, pulled back into an explosive ponytail. She looked you up and down and, with a nod, she said you're too good for him, and promptly left the room. The F did you say, brat? Don't you curse in this house. Bakugo just groaned, his palms sparking slightly at the interactions. It seemed like being here pushed his buttons, so it was now your unofficial job to help calm him down. Who was that? You asked as he rounded on you, his expression softening only slightly. My dumbass sister, so DMN annoying. Her words stung, though, even if he didn't want to admit it. Bakugo sometimes wondered what you saw in him, that if you'd eventually get fed up with his personality and just decide to leave one day. Hey, you said, snapping him out of his thoughts. Thanks for inviting me over. Now hurry up so I can meet your really amazing, appealing mom. Bakugo just smirked, pushing away the uncharacteristic ideas of self-doubt. That's a good start, keep it up and we won't have any problems. Being a pro hero himself, he understands very well the ins and outs of a demanding hero life. When the two of you got together, there was a lot of open communication, so you both understood the reality that either of you may have to spend time away from home for work. Well, it turns out your agency moved you all the way across the country due to needing your expertise and quirk for a mission that would take close to a year to close, as they scoped out a large and invasive villain group. You questions whether or not to take the job, but Deku encourages you to do it. He knows you'll do great, but openly admits that the distance might make things hard for a while. But you two talked about this possibly happening and agreed that the career move and taking down the villains would be best for you. He'll support you no matter what. It's emotional the day you leave, and while sometimes he's still embarrassed about PD, this time he's just sobbing openly, saying how much he'll miss you and will call and text you every day unless you tell him not to so you don't get in trouble. But you eventually hop on the train and say your goodbyes, knowing you won't be back for at least a month. For the first couple of days he does fine and even kind of enjoys some alone time, but of course calls to make sure you arrive there safely, and though the time zones are a bit different, he texts you good morning knowing you'll see it later, and you call him to say goodnight and catch up on the days apart. He starts to get lonely after about a week. The bed feels unusually cold and big and misses cuddling up next to you and waking up to you and making dinner with you, and oh no, he's making himself nostalgic and sad thinking about it, and it hasn't even been that long. The first time you come back to visit for a couple of weeks, he just showers you in kisses and affection and says how much he missed you, and it's a good reunion, though you both know it won't last very long, so he'd requested at least a few days off from hero work to spend as much time with you as possible. The time goes by way too quickly, and once again you say goodbye to him at the train station. Deku comes back home and it already feels empty and lonely again. He knew he'd miss you, but being alone again reminds him of middle school and not having anyone to really talk to in a meaningful way. You'd become his best friend over the years. You mail him presents and he mails you things he know you'd find funny or will cheer you up. You guys Skype when you both have the time, and he just beams when he sees your face, even if it's through a screen. The year is almost up, and while some days or weeks are harder than others, you both get through it knowing you'll be home eventually. The case is almost closed. He cleans the apartment and wants to make your favorite meal for when you get home, but you're so tired from the long train ride you just want to go home and cuddle and sleep. He's completely fine with that, just glad to have you back with him. Todoroki grew up without much social interaction since he was mostly kept away from his siblings by his father, But hitting high school he grew connected with people and friends and understood the importance of a sense of belonging. The both of you have been pro-heroes for several years now, working in the same city but at different agencies. He's grown used to your company, and just the previous year you both got an apartment together. He feels like he can make his own life and choices since he's not under his father's thumb anymore. He appreciates the patience you've had with him when you find out your agency wants to offer you another job opportunity to work in a different city to help improve relations between long-distance agencies. You and Todoroki have to talk about it since long distance hasn't come up before. He wants you to be happy and knows how hard you both work to become pro-heroes, and it would be selfish of him to keep you from a positive career move even if it means both of you have to work harder at communicating and things may be a bit rough. Ultimately you decide to take the offer. He sees you off at the train station and just holds you for a while until you have to pull away or you'll miss the train. When the train finally pulls out he feels an odd sense of loneliness he hasn't felt in a long while. It makes him uncomfortable when he makes it back home. Everything just seems too quiet. Normally he doesn't mind the silence, but knowing you aren't there and won't be back for at least a month, it feels like a deep echo in his ears. You call him when you arrive in the new city and he immediately feels better after hearing your voice. He hadn't realized the whole apartment had dropped down several degrees once he got home, but now felt just a little warmer. He occupies himself with his own hero work and goes to visit his mother and siblings when he can, but when he comes home he gets a feeling of isolation again. He leaves the TV on but doesn't bother watching it, something to just drown out the sound of silence and your absence. You both text back and forth frequently and you end up surprising him when you come back for your first visit. The apartment is slightly messier than when you left it, but that's fine. It still feels like home. Todoroki sticks to you like glue for the entire time you're back. When you leave again and he gets back home from the station, he's surprised to find a sticky note on the fridge. It just says "Miss and love you lots" with hearts drawn all over it. He keeps the note on the fridge. Over the next few weeks he finds more hidden notes that you'd left for him to remind him you're still there and are thinking of him and home while you're away. He keeps every single one, and, especially if there's been a rough day of hero work, he reads through them all over again. When he brings you home for the last time you see he'd grabbed up all your notes. You left him new ones every time you visited and put them in a jar so he could just shake it up and pull out a random one whenever he wanted. Like a love note jar. You both cook dinner together and for the first time in a year the apartment feels warm like a winter fire. He'd never thought of going ice skating before. The idea had never crossed his mind. Whenever he thought of ice his train of thought went immediately to his quirk, to fighting, to training, not to something fun. So when his partner suggested taking him ice skating he honestly wasn't sure what all that entailed, or how he might feel about it. Ice skating? He asked hesitantly. It wasn't that he was scared or anything, but the idea of trying something new, something unfamiliar, one more thing he missed out on as a child, was a bit daunting. Just try it. If you really hate it we can leave and I'll buy you soba to make up for it. Deal? You answered while leading him down the street towards the makeshift skating rink that the city set up now that the winter weather was starting to set in. I do like soba, Todoroki said as you dragged him by the hand. The skating rink was already filled with people, most of whom were skating and having fun while others sat with hot chocolate or cider off to the side for a break. After renting out 2 pairs of skates and trying them on, Todoroki immediately knew this would be harder than he anticipated, which he hadn't anticipated would be difficult at all, balancing on 2 thin blades vs his shoes. He was used to sliding around on his own ice, but for some reason he was now having difficulty keeping upright. A group of small children walked by the two of you while easily walking, or waddling, rather, with their own skates just to drive the point home. You helped him up while trying desperately not to laugh as he grabbed onto every handrail and supporting wall he could. Eventually he finally made it to the main skating rink. There were families pushing their kids along, bundled up like puffy colorful marshmallows, while some more advanced skaters skipped easily around everyone else by either racing each other or occasionally doing spins and jumps. Don't be nervous, you'll be fine, you said, grabbing him by the elbow and leading him onto the ice. Almost. Immediately he grabbed onto the side as he felt his feet slipping out from under him. He stuck closely to the wall and guardrail and made it 1 lap around the rink after about 10 minutes and only fell down 3 times. Is it supposed to be this hard? Can't I use my quirk? You know we can't use our quirks outside of school. Are you saying you can't do it? Giving up? Now, Todoroki wasn't as quick to react as Bakugo when it came to people challenging him to things or claiming he couldn't do something. But this should be so simple considering how many children were literally skating circles around him. "I will win," he said while letting go of the guardrail with an overly determined look. What was that thing they taught to people learning how to ski? Pizza, French fries, pizza, French fries. Todoroki mumbled to himself while his feet went in and out on the ice, slowly getting the hang of it. At one point he grabbed onto the back of your jacket and let you pull him since you were a decent skater, and by the end of it all he was actually smiling. Finally the two of you decided to take a break and grab some hot chocolate. "Well, what did you think?" Todoroki hummed while cooling his hand just enough on the outside of his cup to make his hot chocolate drinkable. It was a bit embarrassing with realizing how terrible he is at it, but by the end he was better than when he started, and he actually had fun. "I like it. But can we still get sober later?" You just laughed and gave him a peck on the cheek. Yeah, we can." "Oh my god, I can't believe you actually took me here," you groaned, letting your head fall into the palms of your hands in the back seat of Ochiko's car as she pulled into the dimly lit parking lot. A building, matte black on the outside with glowing neon letters above the double doors, was visible through the windshield. "It's your birthday. So, yeah, we're not holding back." Mina screeched while shaking your shoulders. "You have to go to a STRPCLB at least once, and I've heard the guys here are super mega hot." You groaned and could already feel your ears burning. "If I pass out you get to drag my butt back home." "Deal." Ochiko chirped as she turned off the car. Everyone piled out of the car and walked towards the double doors, showing their ids to the bouncer before entering. Immediately you were hit with an odd combination of smells: clean carpet, alcohol, and sweat. The lights were dim, casting a SNSL glow over the whole room as raucous laughter and whistles sped over the music playing in the background. Looking around you could tell there was at least one bachelorette party that was being entertained by a handsome-looking man with bright red hair and eyes to match, the colored lights casting his muscles in a halo of slow, deliberate movement. You had to tear your eyes away before you tripped over your own 2 feet. You had no clue how tonight would go. Mina led all of you towards a table by the bar, the lush red seats surprisingly comfortable as everyone looked curiously at the empty stage a few feet away. After a moment a shirtless man wearing briefs that might be just one size too small came up and asked for drink orders. You ordered something strong, knowing you weren't paying, and liquid courage was necessary for this whole ordeal. "Oh, I almost forgot." Mina dug into her giant purse and pulled out a cheap-looking plastic tiara that said "Birthday Girl" in sparkly letters, which she fitted sloppily on top of your head. "So the guys know which one they should give their attention to," she said with a wink. Ochiko just patted you on the back. She was here for the show, too. You and your friends were totally unaware a couple of the employees were figuring out who would entertain your group. "That one with the tiara is cute, she looks shy as hell though," a man with bright yellow hair said as he tapped on his chin. His co-worker scoffed before tossing back a sip of water. "Maybe I can bring her out of her shell then." "Stand back and watch a pro," the man with pale blonde hair said before making his way over to your table with a saunter that oozed of confidence and sex appeal. "Hi, you all look bored. Mind if I change that?" Immediately the table quieted down as you stared up at the insanely gorgeous man staring down at you. He was slim but well-built with broad shoulders, and you knew he had abs hiding behind that black tank top of his. But his eyes were like treasured rubies glistening with curiosity. Mina cleared her throat. Oh yeah. It's our friend's birthday today and she absolutely needs the start treatment, mister. Just Bakugo, he said, tone sultry and low. "And you are?" he asked, turning towards you. "Why?" You managed to mutter out while trying not to stare. Wait, were you supposed to stare? Was it rude here not to stare? Before you could come up with an answer, the man hopped up on stage and started to move. You remained his center of attention throughout the show. His movements were lithe and deliberate, steps light but full of power as he never took his eyes off you. Your throat had never been so dry in your entire life. At least that's what you thought until he slowly slid off his shirt, revealing, you were right, a perfectly toned torso like you'd only seen in magazines. Mina and Ochiko were also drooling, but Bakugo only gave them cursory glances, enjoying your flustered expressions a bit too much. Eventually he stepped off the stage and slid behind your chair, his warm hands coming up to lightly run down the goosebumps on your shoulders and arms before whispering in your ear, "This will be a birthday you never forget, YN." Oh, he was certainly right, but your voice was gone, evaporated, completely disappeared, and all you could do was nod while Ochako snickered and Mina stared. You had no clue when his breaths disappeared, but they did, and oh no, he had a nice button. "Your crown makes you look like a queen," Bakugo cooed as he leaned over you in your hair, basically trapping you in as your skin buzzed and your pulse raced. "I'm the king here, so it's only fitting I please the queen." He liked his lips, and at that point you promptly passed out in your chair. Yeah, this was definitely a birthday you'd never forget. Kaminari doesn't realize how big of a flirt he is, honestly. He's very open when talking to people and just sort of keeps talking unless someone tells him to shut it. Is comfortable with platonic touching and enjoys things like hugs, shoulder, arm touches, holding hands or linking elbows with his friends. He's just a very touchy-feely person. You knew this when the two of you started dating, so it didn't come as a surprise. What was unexpected, however, was how jealous you'd be when Kaminari was around specific people, notably Shinsu. Their personalities were such opposites, with Kaminari being very outgoing and loud while Shinsu was far more subdued, that you didn't think they'd get along quite so well as they did. At first there weren't any issues. You knew how your boyfriend was going into the relationship, so you didn't really feel the need to talk about any insecurities or jealousy issues because you didn't think they'd be a problem. As they spent more time together, you noticed Shinsu slowly starting to open up to people and looking less closed off. Maybe it was Kaminari's influence. Now, Kaminari can be kind of dense when it comes to observational skills, so he didn't notice your sour moods at first whenever he hung out with Shinsu. It took him a while to realize something was wrong because you didn't speak up about it. One night when the two of you are studying in his room, well, you were studying and he was playing video games. As break, he just blurts out, "Hey, are you mad at me over something? You're acting weird lately." At first you think of denying anything is wrong because you don't want to make a big deal out of nothing, but if your boyfriend can pick up on your mood, then it'd be pretty pointless to try and hide it anymore. "Do you like Shinsu?" "What? Yeah. We're buds." "Why?" "No, I mean, do you like him as more than just a friend?" At this point he actually pauses the game, which he only does when something is super serious, and stares at you with an expression of, "Did you really just ask me that?" "What do you mean?" "I'm dating you, not him." "I mean, you're always so friendly towards him. You're like that with everyone, but, I dunno, it seems different." It takes him a minute to register what he could have done to make you think this when he realizes that you might actually be jealous of the attention he gives to other people and calls himself an idiot. He apologizes and assures you he's not with anyone else, only you, but also explains he's just like that around people he's comfortable with and he can't really change that about himself, so instead he just gives you extra affection and attention from them on. And if you're all in a group together, he's more aware of what he's doing with other people and will sit next to you more often and give you some good PDA smooches and handholds and open compliments. Todoroki groaned into his pillow, tossing and turning in his bed. He'd been trying to fall asleep for at least an hour, but his mind kept wandering and his eyes wouldn't stay closed. He pulled the sheets down, running a hand through his hair as he got up from the bed. "Might as well take a walk, I guess," he muttered, slipping on some shoes and wandering out into the empty dorm hallway. The air outside was cool and refreshing. He inhaled deeply, smelling freshly cut grass, midnight dew, and some faraway smog left over by one of the factory buildings several blocks away. Mostly pleasant scents. Walking down the sidewalk by the dormitories, he stopped after noticing he wasn't alone, the silhouette of someone else sitting on a bench. They were staring up at the sky. "Hello," he called out. Turning their head towards him, he sighed in relief seeing his girlfriend, though he wondered why she was out so late. "Todo, hey. Come sit by me," she answered, waving him over and patting the empty seat beside her on the bench. "What are you doing up? Can't sleep either?" he asked while sitting down, one arm draped over the back of the bench behind you. You nodded. "Yeah, something like that. When I just need to calm down, I come outside and look at the stars, though I wish I could see more of them, thanks, light pollution." Todoroki looked up, the sky dark and the moon bright, surrounded by twinkling lights stationary in an endless expanse above him. "Stars? I don't know a lot about stars. They're nice to look at, though. Do you know any of the constellations?" Those are the pictures we drew when certain groups of stars are connected, right? Yeah. I like to think about finding hidden beauty in nature, even if it wasn't necessarily intended that way, no. Try as he might, Todoroki couldn't really see any pictures or images, just twinkling lights of dying suns light years away. Show me some. The next half hour was spent with you pointing out several images above the city, your finger hovering to connect the stars with imaginary lines and explaining the meaning behind specific people or animals. While he saw most of them once they were pointed out, there were a few that still perplexed him, but you didn't need to know that. Eventually you yawned, his arm draped over the back of the bench coming up to pull you in closer. Getting tired finally. You rubbed your eyes, vision blurry and eyelids heavy. Yeah, a little. Todoroki inwardly admitted that he was getting tired as well, thankful for the decision to come outside. Wanna come up to my room? You can tell me more about constellations. I have extra blankets. You blushed but nodded, standing up from the bench with a groan as you stretched your arms above you. Getting up as well, Todoroki grabbed your hand, leading you back into the building. He wouldn't have any trouble sleeping now. The restroom tiles were like ice on your knees, uncaring and without give as you knelt over the toilet hoping no one walked in, petals falling from your burning throat into the water like lily pads on a pond. Your eyes watered painfully, feeling the last petal leave your tongue and flutter down, hands gripping tightly to the porcelain, hoping beyond hope that no one walked into the bathroom to find you. It was increasingly difficult seeing him around her, but also unavoidable since everyone was in the same classes. You'd tear your eyes away whenever he talked with her, even if it was just asking a simple question about the homework. You'd feel the prickle of petals in your throat if you stared a little too long, thought a little too hard, and felt a little too deeply. So you didn't. And eventually he noticed. You avoided him whenever possible, though gave him no explanation as to why, leaving him to wonder if he'd offended you or made you upset at some point. No one else had an answer when he asked, either. You kept your secret to the confines of your room, the wastebasket hidden under your desk filled with tissues and dried petals. Why? Are you alright? Todoroki's voice brought you out of yet another distracting daydream before class started. The lack of sleep from coughing was starting to show in your performance and on your face. You look really tired, did you not sleep well? It felt like you were swallowing syrup as you talked. Oh yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just had trouble falling asleep is all. I'll take a nap later after class. He looked at you skeptically, but you hoped he'd leave you alone as you felt the familiar tickle in your chest. Can we talk after school? Sorry, I know you're tired, but I need to ask you something. Hopefully it won't take long. The tug of war in your brain told you to deny him the talk, while your heart held the other end. Your mouth spoke before the rope moved past the center line. Yeah, sure. We can talk. He nodded with a smile before sitting down at his own desk, though you honestly felt like running to the toilet at the prospect of being alone with him. The day sped by far too quickly, and you knew the game was up, unable to avoid him any longer as he cornered you after class. Ready? We can talk outside. He didn't wait for you to answer before he started walking. You followed, head hung low as you caught sight of Momo out of the corner of your eye, quickly turning away as she silently watched Todoroki lead you out of the school. He finally stopped at the side of the building, away from groups of students heading back to the dorms before turning on you abruptly. Do you hate me? He asked. You couldn't help the gasp that escaped your parted lips. What? No. I don't hate you. So why have you been avoiding me? Did I say something to make you mad? He was never one to tiptoe with his words, choosing the most direct approach to get the information he wanted. No, you didn't. I'm not mad. You hesitated, knowing mad was not the correct word to you. It didn't escape Todoroki. What are you then? His look softened and you had to glance away, feeling the creeping whisper of petals in your throat as he spoke. As he reached out towards you, a hand to comfort, no doubt, you backed away before doubling over, hands over your mouth. But it was too late. A single petal swam through the air to the ground, your eyes watery knowing your secret was revealed. You have. Oh, was all Todoroki said. But who? It's you, okay, you screamed, spitting another bitter petal out of your mouth. You're the reason. But you're with her and Todoroki looked at you with a confused expression. With who? You wiped the spit from your mouth on the back of your hand, standing up to look him in the eyes you often dreamed of. With Yoirozu. You love her, right? It took a moment to register your words, but after what felt like an eternity to you he shook his head. No, that's not true. I thought, is that why? He bent down to pick up one of the petals, twirling it between his fingers. You should have told me. You don't like her. We're just friends, she's the top student in our class. She's a good tutor. So you've been avoiding me because you assumed I didn't like you. He stepped closer, cupping the back of your head in his hand, slightly cool to the touch, and pulled you into his shoulder. Maybe I should have said something earlier, I'm not very good with this stuff though. Your fingers clawed at his school uniform, feeling the diminishing sensation of petals in your chest until, at last, you could breathe in the smell of him. It was just supposed to be a normal fight against an average villain. And he was winning. At least he was, until he started shrinking, smaller, until he was less than half his original height. A shrinking quirk. No, looking at his hands, they were pudgy and short and he no longer fit in his hero costume properly. Oh, 𝐒𝐻 Kirishima. Oh God, what happened? A familiar voice made his head turn as his SO came running at him, a concerned look on their face. For some reason he felt like crying. You're so little now. Oh no, Simu, don't cry. They wrapped him up in his oversized costume and picked him up as he clung to the front of their shirt, fat tears rolling down his now pudgy cheeks. Sowie. Kirishima said, sniffling. Hey, it's okay, manly men cry, too. I assume this quirk will wear off at some point. Are you hungry? Kirishima, now approximately a 3-year-old, nodded enthusiastically at the mention of food, sadness forgotten for the time being. They carried him to their home, setting him down on the couch as he scared his thumb. Geez, you're a cute kid. Sit still and I'll get you a snack. No, he yelled, an adorable pout on his face. Pick me up. Pick me up. His SO sighed before picking him up again and carrying him to the kitchen. Cute, but clingy. Alright, let's see. I don't really have baby food here. How about cereal? Candy. No candy, you need real food -candy. He pounded his little fists into their shoulder, about to throw a tantrum if he did not get some candy in his mouth soon. Cereal or you're going down for a nap. The raised voice and threat of a nap made his big red eyes water. Oh no, sorry, fine. Candy it is. The tears dried up as quickly as they appeared. After cleaning up a mess of candy wrappers, they managed to brush his sharp teeth for him. He really did not like the taste of toothpaste, but too bad. Wrapped up in a blanket, toddler Kirishima was now skinning his thumb watching one of the few animated movies you owned, eyes looking sleepy but still glued to the screen. I'm tired, babysitting is tiring. Hopefully you'll turn back tomorrow, they yawned out. They both fell asleep on the couch, the movie still playing in the background. The distinct sound of loud snoring woke them up, drool seeping into the old couch cushions as they felt a heavy weight on top of them. A grown-up Kirishima was snuggled up into their chest, strong arms wrapped around them like a pillow. The blanket he was wrapped in just barely covered everything since his hero costume didn't fit the previous day, making his SO blush furiously. Wake up, ding dong. They pinched his nose until Kirishima sputtered awake, sitting up from the couch rubbing the sleep from his pretty red eyes. Hey, what? Oh, hey. I turned back. Kirishima looked at his SO. Thanks for taking care of me yesterday. Sorry I ate all your candy, You aren't so bad as kid, glad to have you back though, they said, giving him a kiss on the cheek. Now, please put on some clothes. Why am I naked? Get back here, USHT. Bakugo yelled at the villain who dodged and skittered around fleeing civilians. He jumped into the air ready to tackle them to the ground when he suddenly fell flat on his face. What? He never missed. What happened? Bakugo. He heard his SO yell behind him. They were following the villain as well, but of course he wanted to be the one to catch him. Where are you? I hear. What? His voice, what the hell was wrong with his voice? Baku, oh my god. You're a baby. His SO finally caught up and they stood, quite a bit taller than him now, looking down with a questioning expression. "I not?" Bakugo yelled, his face turning red from frustration. He wasn't a kid, he was a big boy. They tried unsuccessfully to hold back a laugh. He tried to kick them in the leg for good measure but tripped over his now oversized hero costume, tears welling up in his angry eyes. "Oh, 𝐶𝐚𝐥, don't cry." They picked him up off the ground, wiping the tears from his face. He struggled in their arms, not wanting to be picked up or treated like the temporary child he was. "Hold still. Put me down." People around were starting to stare at this point, so his SO decided it was best to move away from the public lest someone call the police on a negligent non-parent. They wrapped him up in his hero costume like a cocoon, carrying him like a swaddled bundle to their home. "I'm so sorry, Bakugo, you'll probably turn back soon. But until then you gotta be a good boy, alright? If you are I'll give you a treat." He sat in a comfy armchair struggling out of his makeshift wrappings with an angry face, but the word treat made him stop. If there was one thing that motivated him right now, it was the possibility of a reward. He could be a good boy, the best boy there ever was. "I good. Oh, that's my boy. Now sit here for a minute, okay?" They left him alone for only a second, wanting to find some clothing to put him in, but while sifting through their drawers a pair of small hands clung to their breed's leg. "What's wrong?" Baby Bakugo rubbed his face into their breaths, hiding his embarrassment. "You left, I'm right here, don't worry." They found an oversized shirt to put him in that acted like a long blanket. "Want to play hide and seek?" Wanting to tire him out, they hoped a couple of games would make the day go by faster so he'd turn back quicker. Unfortunately, little Bakugo was bustling with energy and wore them out before he was even close to tired. They on the bed, Bakugo jumping up and down using it as a trampoline. "Come here you." It was weird having a toddler for a boyfriend, but he still made a pretty adorable kid. After a tickle fight, Bakugo's big red eyes finally started to close, tired from the day's activities. Sleepy, he cuddled up next to them on the bed as he promptly fell asleep. They pulled the covers over him before settling in as well. "Yeah, me too, good night, Baku." Bakugo woke up first, unfamiliar smells making his nose scrunch up. His arm was wrapped around something warm and soft. Oh. He was in his SO's bed, an arm draped around them. Memories of the previous day flooded back as he growled, waking up the other person in the bed. Before they could speak, though, he put a rough hand over the mouth, eyes glaring daggers. "Tell no one," he gritted out before pulling them in close and closing his eyes to drift back off to sleep, enjoying a few more moments of warm comfort before settling back into adulthood. The air outside was cool as people gathered around holding various viewing devices, impatiently waiting for the solar eclipse to start. Your home sat remotely on the side of a mountain, isolated from the business and light pollution of nearby towns. The nights were intensely quiet and dark outside of the occasional train rolling barely 100 yards from your front doorstep. Today was a day you and your friends had been waiting for ever since scientists calculated the next viewing of a solar eclipse, something you'd probably only see once in your lifetime. Oh. Why hurry up? One of your friends called out from the open field behind your backyard. "Coming." Grabbing one of the homemade viewers from inside, you jogged towards your group of friends gathered around excitedly as the eclipse was about to start. It was obviously dangerous to stare right up at the sun, and just as damaging to stare up into an eclipse, so everyone held up their homemade viewers and prepared as the sky started to darken and the moon slowly but surely edged its way across the sky into the silhouette of the sun. An old well sat in your backyard, old and overgrown with moss and weeds, having long dried up many years before you moved into the place with your family. Wanting to get a bit more comfortable, you decided to sit on the edge of the well while holding up your viewer to protect your eyes. The eclipse was happening practically right above your head, which forced you to crane back in order to see it properly. With blackened sky overhead, the moon finally sat squarely in the center of the sun, a halo of light around a black and empty hole which sent a shiver down your spine. You made the mistake, however, of leaning back too far in an attempt to look straight up, and before you knew what was happening, the well sked you in like a clump of dust to a vacuum hose. Darkness surrounded you as you started screaming, hands trying to grasp at anything to slow down your descent, The wet moss and slippery stone on the inside of the well prevented any grip despite your best attempts, so your screams echoed fruitlessly as you continued to fall and anticipated the last moments of your life before you hit the bottom of the well with a sickening, bloody thud. But you weren't met with death, or even a particularly hard landing. No, when you finally stopped falling and your lungs gave out from exhaustion, the thud that occurred was more like an oof. Groaning, you sat up and felt around until you pulled your hand back from a surprising pinch. Oh! The hell! A wooden splinter sat in the palm of your hand, which was odd because the bottom of the well should definitely be stone, not wood. You stood up and felt around the slippery walls and were surprised to see the top of the well wasn't nearly as far off as you figured it would from your fall. Wait, shouldn't you be dead? Hey! Anyone up there? Help me out! You screamed while trying to work your way up the walls, but moss and weak vines reached all the way to the bottom, preventing you from holding a grip. Where the hell is everyone? Taking out your phone, you were going to text someone to come back outside and help you out, but were surprised when no service appeared at the top of the screen. Turning on your phone's flashlight, you looked around for any hidden handholds, but no such luck. Now you were starting to panic. No cell service, you couldn't climb out, were disoriented and confused from your fall and not being a human pancake. What in the world was going on? For several minutes you continued to yell up for anyone to help you out, to signal that someone was trapped in a well. Where's Lassie when you need her? While sitting down against the wet walls, the sun overhead beat down on you fiercely despite being far down in otherwise pitch darkness. At least it did, until a shadow overhead blocked out a portion of the sun, causing you to look up. It has a vaguely human silhouette. Hey! Can you help me out? You yelled desperately. You didn't care at this point who it was. Remaining down here was the absolute worst option, that was for sure. Who the F are you? A loud and raspy voice echoed down into the well. You didn't recognize it, but you weren't about to be picky. I'm someone trapped in a well. What does it look like? Can you help me please? Your sarcasm sprang up at the absolute worst times, suddenly paranoid that the stranger might leave because of your attitude. And for a moment you panicked because the silhouette did indeed disappear from the top of the well. A moment later, though, something heavy was tossed down and you had to back up into the wall to avoid being hit in the head with the rickety and definitely unsafe-looking rope ladder. At least it was better than nothing, so you'd take it. Your upper body strength left something to be desired as you climbed up the ladder. Hurry up. Ain't got all day. The same angry voice called down to you about halfway up your climb, but you ignored it for fear of losing concentration and falling to your real death. With heavy breath and tired arms, you finally climbed out of the well and promptly flopped onto the ground, only to be met with a very real and very sharp sword to your neck. You gasped and stilled before looking up the hilt of the sword to see who it was attached to and were met with piercing, almost glowing, red eyes. That wasn't normal. I'll ask again, who the F are you? The nameless voice repeated. His crimson cloak sung in the wind with fur that lined around his neck and strong-looking shoulders. A burst of blonde hair like an explosion sat atop his head, but you were too busy focusing on the sword to get a much better look at the moment. Aya, where am I? Who are you? You asked hesitantly while your peripheral vision took in the surroundings of a dense forest of unfamiliar trees and plants. This was definitely not your backyard anymore. I asked the questions, the man grit out while looming over you. If he was trying to look intimidating, he excelled at that feat. Sorry, you squeaked. Don't pester the guy with the sword, you thought to yourself. I'm YN. The sun overhead cast a dark shadow over his face, but you could tell he was looking at you strangely. What village do you come from? Don't recognize the clothes. They're weird. Now it was your turn to look even more confused than you already were. Village. I'm not from a village. Panic of a completely different sort settled in your stomach like a stone weight. Something was horribly wrong here. Maybe it was the confused look on your face, but something made the strange man finally lower his sword, though he didn't bother sheathing it and instead bent down to your eye level. Oh, no, he was handsome. And very strong-looking. And was wearing some weird cosplay gear. Had you wandered into a LARP session? Suddenly he leaned in closer, very close, and sniffed you, nose twitching curiously on his face, but you didn't dare push him away with the sword still close by. Pulling back, he sneered as if stung by something offensive. You smell unfamiliar, he said slowly while eyeing you with intense suspicion. Okay, look. I was just with my friends and I sat on my well and leaned back too far like an idiot and fell and I thought I was dead, but I woke up at the bottom of this well and I'm definitely not at home and shut up, he snapped, causing your teeth to clack shut. Standing up, he looked around before walking the perimeter of the well with careful precision, as if looking for something. Only he could see. When he reached your eye line again, he looked surprised as realization lit up in his oddly crimson eyes. This is... Carefully and cautiously you stood up as well while attempting to uselessly dust off your breathes of soil and moss. Just great, you mumbled. The strange man came back around to stand in front of you, posture rigid and ready to react at any given moment. SHT. I'm awful. Thank you for helping me out of the well, you said with a low bow, remembering to actually thank him for saving you from a pitiful death of starvation at the bottom of an old well. He seemed taken aback by the gesture, as if he wasn't used to being bowed to or thanked. With a scoff he turned back to the well and yanked up his ladder before bundling it up in a cloth sack which he hoisted over his shoulder. And then he started to walk away. Wait. Don't leave. I don't know where I am or what's going on. Is there a way for me to get back home? You blurted out in a panic at the thought of being left alone in a bizarre location definitely far away from home. The man turned his heel on you and gave you a look that screamed of annoyance. I helped you, now leave me alone. Do you know what the well does? Do you know something I don't? You asked desperately, still very aware of his now sheathed sword at his side. At that he smirked, like he knew all the secrets you ever could ask about and was only willing to tell them for a price. You want to know about the well. Why should I tell you? At that you had no answer, he'd already helped you. So what could you possibly offer to get this stranger to continue providing aid and possibly information? This forest looked large and winding, easy to get lost in, but you needed food and water and shelter. You eyed his pack, and while it looked heavy it was the best thing you could think of on the spot. I'll carry your bag for you. On the promise of you telling me what the hell is going on. Do you have a name? Again he looked surprised, as if he wasn't expecting you to actually offer up anything for his information. But his smirk returned as he hoisted the bag from his shoulder and shoved it into your arms. SHT, it was heavier than you thought, but you couldn't go back on your word, now. Fine, pack mule. Deal. If you steal from me, though, I slit your throat, he growled with a hard stare. You nodded vigorously and he seemed to approve. I'm Bakugo the Untamed. No one messes with me, and no one dares stand in my way. And no one has ever seen a person come out of that well. The sun beat down mercilessly despite the dense shade cast by the canopy of almost impossibly tall trees surrounding you as your steps crunched atop fallen leaves and cracked branches on the dry forest floor while carrying a heavy pack across your shoulder. The strange man called Bakugo walked tirelessly in front of you, only bothering to slow down with a sneer when you called out that he was going too fast. You're so slow. I could probably move faster and carry my bag faster than you, he bit out over his shoulder, face mostly obscured by the feathery fur lining the top of his cape. You weren't exactly used to carrying heavy equipment, but you were trying your best to keep up. Pausing for a moment to wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, you adjusted the bag on your back, paranoid that your grip might slip as perspiration formed between your palms and the dirty fabric. Sorry, you said with furrowed brow. Seems like you know where you're going, but are we close to wherever you're leading me? That stray thought of following a total stranger who carried a very sharp sword at his side into unfamiliar woods made your throat clench with worried paranoia. You might end up on some news station later as the dumbass who got yourself killed by doing everything they told you not to do in school. Bakugo clicked his tongue in annoyance. Just keep walking. Not my fault you're dressed like SHT for travel in those weird clothes. I wasn't exactly planning on it. You were interrupted as a sudden burst of movement jumped out in front of the two of you, a blur of red blocking your path. Bakugo didn't even flinch. Oi oi! Took you long enough. And that's when you screamed. Without hesitation you dropped his bag and turned around, nearly tripping over a fallen tree trunk in the process before hastily hiding behind another tree, wild panic, fear, and confusion winding through your brain as it attempted to process what you'd just seen. A low and guttural roar made you flinch. This couldn't be real, it wasn't real, there's no way, no way. Hey, 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐲, get the hell back here. Bakugo demanded, but your fear of trying to comprehend the impossible overshadowed your fear of the wild man with the sword. A bizarre noise echoed in the forest for a moment before you heard a new, unfamiliar voice. Bakugo. Sorry I got distracted on the way back, was that a person following you? Oh man, did I scam? Hey, you. It's okay, I'm not dash, shut up, you moron. All you could hear now was bickering back and forth between Bakugo and this new person, but you remained still behind the thick tree. Maybe this was a dream, a very weird, lucid dream. The sound of dry brush under heavy boots caught your attention as Bakugo rounded the tree to stare at you with agitation and a quirked brow. Coward. Dragon folk ain't as scary as people think, at least not Kirishima. He just looks tough when he wants to, or I tell him to. Hey, you hear me? The shocked look on your face must have confused him, as if his explanation was routine and nothing out of the ordinary. Dragon, was all you managed to say at his confirmation that you weren't crazy. Did I stutter, 𝐴𝐚𝐲? Come on, I don't have all day. With that he grabbed you by the wrist and dragged you out from behind the tree. His hand was warm and sweaty, warmer than you thought was healthy, honestly. You expected to see the large red dragon from a few minutes ago, but instead a man with spiky red hair and similar clothing to Bakugo stood with wide, curious eyes. The only indication that he might not be human was his sharp teeth. They are dressed weird. What kind of breeds are those? Did you just grab them up on the road? The new addition asked while you were reluctantly pulled towards him by Bakugo. He leaned down and picked up his dropped pack with a glare in your direction. Bakugo stopped walking and you nearly bumped into him. They came out of the well, he replied with a tone that implied you were some sort of anomaly. To you, though, everything was bizarre. The man who you assumed was the dragon you saw just minutes ago now looked at you with even more curiosity. The well. Wait, whoa, no way. The one from the stories. Bakugo nodded with a smirk. He hadn't let go of your wrist. That's the one. Imagine what someone would pay to see the only living person to climb out that thing. Hey, you interrupted, finally gaining a bit of nerve. Bakugo and the dragon man stared at you. Don't talk about me as if I'm not here. I'm not some animal on display for you, I just want to know how to get home. They can talk. I'm Kirishima. Nice to meet ya. Kirishima stuck his thumb in his chest as he introduced himself before wavering with the realization he didn't know your name. I'm YN, you answered while yanking your wrist from Bakugo's grip. Are you really a dragon? Kirishima shifted from curious to almost hurt at your question. I mean, yeah, I'm part dragon. I know most people think we're scary, but honestly people just don't know us that well. I don't eat people or anything if that's what you're worried about. Also YN is a weird name. You really are from the well, here. That's what I said. Listen when I talk, moron, Bakugo bit out while handing his bag to Kirishima rather than back to you. Well, dragons don't exist where I'm from, so dash what? Kirishima yelled while Bakugo stared at you dumbfounded. What do you mean they don't exist? I'm real. For the next 10 minutes all three of you bickered back and forth about the validity of dragons before Bakugo held up a hand and promptly shouted for everyone to shut up. Sun's going down, let's get back to the cave. And you dash, he said, poking a stern finger in your chest. Are coming with us. Really? Oh, I have so many questions, Kirishima exclaimed excitedly. Bakugo's demanding attitude was grating on your nerves, but at least this newcomer, dragon man or not, seemed nicer and more approachable. This whole situation was making your head spin, but being yourself in a dark forest might be just as dangerous as if you remained with this wild man and his half-dragon friend. If I follow you, can you finally tell me about this whole well thing? He eyed you carefully and you swore his smoldering crimson eyes could see right through you. Maybe he felt sorry for your situation, or he'd feel guilty if you wandered off on your own and got into trouble. Or maybe he was just as selfish as he appeared and only wanted you to gather information and possibly showcase you like a trapped animal in a zoo for a bit of money. His strong-jawed face gave nothing away as he turned around to continue walking with a lingering stare over his shoulder. As long as you can keep up, outsider. Bakugo was, indeed, right about darkness coming on soon. It descended far more quickly than it did at your own home, and a chill that sunk right through your skin into your bones tagged along with it. The weather back home was warmer as well, so you weren't dressed for being outside at night, either. Without the bag in your hands, you rubbed your arms and blew warm air into your palms in an attempt to stave off the sudden cold, but it did little good. In addition, because you lived far out from the city, you were used to the darkness, but here without any artificial light at all, the night seemed more menacing. Bakugo walked in front while Kirishima walked behind you, effectively sandwiching you in between the only people you'd seen since coming here, your makeshift guides for now. You felt like a prisoner despite Kirishima trying to make curious conversation with you. Just your luck that you'd been found by this Bakugo the Untamed, rather than someone more polite. Yeah, he was cute, but his attitude soured that trait a bit. Finally, Bakugo sighed as he pushed his way through the edge of the woods and came upon a small clearing. At the edge of your vision you could barely make out a gaping black hole which looked wholly uninviting, but you assumed it was the opening to the cave he'd mentioned earlier. Getting an idea, you took your phone out of your pocket and turned on the flashlight app. Your battery was half dead at this point and still no signal. The sudden burst of visibility made Bakugo turn on his heel and reach for his sword while Kirishima yelped behind you. "Chill out. It's just my phone," you said, holding it up. Both of your companions looked at you with the same level of confusion you'd probably shown when Bakugo mentioned dragon folk. "Magic. You said your world has no magic, earlier." Bakugo's hand never left the hilt of his sword and his stance was defensive as he eyed you with new suspicion. "It's so bright. What's a phone?" Kirishima asked while squinting behind you. "Oh, well, this was a new development. Maybe you could get the upper hand in this situation if you improvised quickly enough, aka tactful bullshitting. We have different magic. It's not like yours. A phone is something we use to communicate with each other long distances, or you can look up information on it. How does it make light?" Carefully Bakugo edged forward and quickly snatched the phone from your hands, but made the mistake of staring right at the flashlight on the back, which blinded him. Arg! He dropped the phone in favor of rubbing his now dilated eyes, not used to such bright artificial light. Bending down, you picked up your phone and couldn't help but laugh for the first time since being here. Kirishima had noticed Bakugo's reaction and decided to keep his distance from the device, but still eyed it with his now familiar curiosity. "Is that the cave up ahead?" Instead of waiting for an answer, you pointed your flashlight towards the cave, which looked far less scary now that it didn't look like a gaping maw in the darkness. Bakugo and Kirishima exchanged glances before following you. "Get behind me, I'm the leader here." Bakugo practically yelled as he shoved past you into the cave with hands balled into fists. To your relief, the cave didn't go that far back, since the idea of something hiding deep inside a long and winding darkness would have surely prevented any sleep despite how exhausted you felt. Kirishima jogged ahead while sifting through the cloth bag for something. "I only got enough food for 2 people, should I go out and get more?" you heard Kirishima ask his companion. The mention of food sent your stomach rumbling. You hadn't eaten since arriving here. Bakugo glanced your way, possibly seeing your eyes light up at the mention of dinner, and gave Kirishima a small nod before taking the bag as the redhead jogging past you. "Be back soon." Now it was just you and Bakugo again. "Oi, point that magic light of yours over here," he demanded while snapping his fingers. For a second you debated following his orders, but the glare he sent you had you scurrying over. He pulled out a couple of tools before gathering up some of the dry kindling and grass with his boot. "Can that thing make fire?" You shook your head in a definite no before he groaned. "Can you make fire?" Again, you shook your head. "Useless," he mumbled before bending down to strike up a fire with things you'd only seen in movies and wilderness TV shows. You watched as he moved meticulously and with purpose, knowing exactly what to do to get the fire started, as if he'd done it hundreds if not thousands of times before. With the fire started, you turned off the app on your phone, not wanting to waste the battery power you had left. The air grew warm and you immediately bent down and stuck your numb fingers towards the flame. "Are you afraid of me?" The question caught you off guard and made you look up. The fire danced in Bakugo's red eyes like burning coals, and once again his glare bore into you without blinking, completely still despite the sparks and orange glow shimmering across his face. If you answered yes, that would give him a power advantage over you with the knowledge he could control you with fear. If you answered no, he might do something to actually make you scared. You decided to choose an answer somewhere between the two extremes. You pointed a sword at me earlier, I was scared then. And it's scary being somewhere I don't know, but I'm not as nervous now. You haven't tossed me out yet, so I take that as a good sign. Do you want me to be afraid of you? People fear me with the knowledge I'm friends with dragons and no one can best me in a fight, he said, still never taking his eyes off you. They were so captivating you had to pull your hands back from the fire to keep from burning yourself on accident. That didn't answer my question, but all right, you responded. Maybe he just assumed everyone cowered in fear of Bakugo the Untamed, and was thrown off by someone who hadn't begged for their life. You did sorta rescue me, so maybe that makes me trust you just a bit. And I don't know about your past or what you've done, so all I can judge you on is what I see. You shrugged, hoping the answer was at least mildly appropriate. Bakugo remained quiet as you warmed yourself by the fire. I'll tell you about the well if you show me that magic light device again. The corners of your mouth quirked up at his willingness to share knowledge as the two of you sat and warmed yourselves by the fire. Thank you for reading. I'm just gonna keep going with this and don't try and stop me. The air is cool tonight, you mumbled as you walked down the street, moving shadow cast down on the wet pavement under warm and flickering street lamps. You'd made a decision, and there was no turning back now. I think you'll be perfect, Shigaraki cackled as you looked in the mirror. Everything was set, the plan was in motion. You wondered if he would fall for this pathetic facade you wore. Not that you were bad at lying by any means, only that Ground Zero was exceptionally perceptive and famously skeptical. He didn't trust easily, if at all. Just follow it exactly as we rehearsed and the plan will succeed, he said with a hand on your shoulder, one finger poised in the air so as not to turn you into dust. The precinct lights were bright and visible as you neared your destination. People, ordinary people, walked by without having any idea who you were or what you planned on doing. You took a deep breath before placing a hand on the door to the police station. Everything was going well. Surprisingly well. You'd studied his personality and went through fake scenarios with Twice and Toga to prepare. He was enamored by you, no clue as to who you were or the underlying nature of this meeting. Nothing of particular interest happened during the first meeting or even the second. Take it slow, earn his trust, you said to your mirrored reflection in the bathroom of the restaurant. His eyes glowed in the single flickering candle set atop a deep emerald tablecloth. He laughed rarely, but it was a pleasant sound. Hello. How can we help you? An officer behind the desk asked. He looked stern but nice enough. I'd like to turn myself in, you answered in a stern and commanding voice. I work for the League of Villains. Several officers nearby turned their heads at your declaration, but you didn't waver. You can't be serious, Bakugo mumbled lazily on the couch. That movie 𝐒𝐿. Does not, maybe you just have shitty taste. He smacked you in the face with a pillow for that one before a warm hand snaked around your back. His warm breath pooled around his lips like steam, seeping into the crease of his mouth before it broke out in a snarky grin. I'm dating you, aren't I? So it can't be that shitty. Excuse me. What did you say? You repeated yourself for the officer, this time louder so everyone in the room could hear. Running wasn't an option. It hurt too much. If you do not arrest me right now, I'll destroy this entire building and everyone in it, you threatened. The look of shock on their faces told you they now took you seriously. The sun peeking through the shuttered window warmed the covers of the bed in an intoxicatingly comfortable way. It really was too early. He slept next to you, pale hair messy with just the smallest bit of drool pooling onto the pillowcase. A strong arm lay limp across your midsection. The calm of his normally angry face was so rare that you wanted to drink in the sight. This is just a job, you mowed into the still air of the bedroom. It won't be long now. The HNDCFFs were cold on your wrists as several officers subdued you. Some still looked skeptical of who you were and why you'd turn yourself in so suddenly, but you could explain all that later. Wind rushed in from the open door as someone walked in. You turned your head when someone whispered, "Look, isn't that Dash?" He stood out of breath, silhouetted by the darkness outside. After you left, he must have chased after you. The flowers were in full bloom right now on the mountain pathway. Bakugo led you up the trail, egging you on while asking for a race. He got zest when you actually beat him. "You're a effing cheater," he said while looking down from the edge at the endless view. A sunset made of mandarins and fresh lavender sunk down into a horizon of jagged trees. No postcard could capture this beauty, really. Shut up, sore loser. You grabbed his hand. He stilled like he always did, but soon eased into the affection. Only when the two of you were alone would you see him like this. He whispered in your ear, and you bit your lip at his words. Just a job, you thought once more. This isn't real. What the F is going on? Bakugo demanded. The hell? Why is she in cuffs? She didn't do dash. It's okay, Katsuki, you said while turning towards him with a sad smile. I turned myself in. He stilled with narrowed eyes and open mouth. Why? The question hung in the air like an empty noose from a tree, desperate for something to fill in the gap. The ice-cold water of the shower wasn't enough. It didn't sting like you needed it to in order to wake you up from this. Emotions weren't supposed to get in the way. This was just a job. I can't do this. Your heart throbbed under your cold skin, beating hopelessly against the echo of your rib cage. It hurt. It hurt so much more than you thought it would. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I really did love you, you know. That was real, you said as warm tears stung the corners of your eyes as an officer tugged on your cuffs. It wasn't supposed to be, but it was. Bakugo stood still as a statue, frozen at the sight of you in HNDCFFS as he pieced together what was happening. I don't understand. Tell me what the F is going on. This wasn't real. Nothing was supposed to be real. But it was. Shigaraki will be pretty mad, but I don't care anymore. Tears fell openly now as Bakugo called after you, several officers holding him back from chasing you through the doors to the holding cells. Sorry for everything. Hey, I'm back. Kirishima's voice rang out in the cave. He carried with him a couple of rabbits slung over his shoulder, slowing down as he neared the warm fire in the middle of the cave. A lumpy cast shadow flitted across the cave wall as Kirishima scanned the scene. You sat next to Bakugo, who held that strange light device from earlier in his hands, turning it over and looking frustrated before he lifted his head and his eyes met Kirishima's. About time, I'm starving. He flippantly tossed the phone to you, but you caught it before the screen cracked on the hard cave ground. Careful. I need this for when I get home and they aren't exactly cheap, you mumbled, though the wild man just scoffed. While his friend was out gathering food, Bakugo demanded you tell him how the device worked and what all it could do. It was nearly impossible to explain the concept of electricity and the internet to someone who had zero experience with such things, but you tried your best until he became frustrated with your odd use of metaphor and would move on to a new question quickly. Of course, there was no internet connection in this bizarre place, so essentially your phone was just a glorified flashlight until the battery ran out. All his messing around on it had left the battery at less than 20%, so even that small use wasn't going to last much longer. You found his curiosity entertaining, though. It's sorta hard to find food when I can't hardly see anything, Kirishima replied while walking towards the warm fire. Silently, Bakugo and Kirishima got to work preparing the food. You were hoping to sit this rather bloody endeavor out, used to getting your food from a grocery store or restaurant, but Bakugo had other plans. A knife was suddenly moved in your direction by Bakugo, his stare steady as he aimed it at you hilt first. Despite the BLD on his hands and the ground, he was relatively clean, which told you he was as familiar with this as he was starting a fire. You don't work, you don't eat. You grimaced at the idea of preparing a dead animal, though maybe it was about time you got a proper look at where your food came from. Kirishima was nearly done with his and gathered up some sturdy sticks to skewer the meat with. You look at him for help, but he was loyal to Bakugo, not you. Have you never made your own food before? It's not too hard. Kinda messy until you get used to it, though. We have, taverns. Stores where we can buy our food already prepared, so most people don't need to do this part, Bakugo sneered. You rich or something? Only people with money here do that often. Think you're better than us because you don't kill your own meal. You really are soft. He grabbed your wrist and put the knife in your hand before closing your fingers tightly around the hilt. Too bad. So he really wasn't going to take it easy on you despite your utter lack of knowledge on something like this. If I do this, will you keep your promise from earlier? Promise? Kirishima asked with curiosity. What promise? Yeah, but I'm hungry, so hurry up. It was a complete non-answer, but honestly he wasn't the only one starving. Luckily they didn't leave you completely on your own, showing you where to cut and how but letting you do the work. The air now smelled heavily of iron and your hands were stained, but by the end of it very fresh food now cooked over an open campfire, one set of which was obviously yours from the messier cuts. Now you desperately wanted a shower or bath, but even that luxury seemed far off. You sat silently between Kirishima and Bakugo as the food sizzled and cracked over the heat. The air grew colder as time passed and the emanating heat could only warm you so much as you wrapped your arms around your knees pulled in close. So, tell me about the well, Bakugo the Untamed. Your flat tone of voice must have caught him off guard when he looked at you strangely from the corner of his eye. Tired, hungry, confused, and overwhelmed with wanting nothing more than to go home and return to familiarity, your patience with his attitude was wearing thin. Being polite would only get you so far with someone like him. Oh, is that what you promised? Kirishima asked while leaning in close but keeping an eye on the food to make sure it didn't burn. Bakugo, too, remained silent for a moment before he began to speak. It was like he was reciting a well-known story rather than trying to remember details on his own. The well of legend is old, its history taught through storytellers by one generation to the next. It is said to be a passage into another dimension, somewhere opposite this one. People flock to the well in hopes of finding something extraordinary, like jewelry or fame, or even to become a legend themselves, but no one was able to make it work. No one really remembers when the story began, only that it started with a bizarre stranger from another land coming here and defeating a great evil before disappearing as if they'd never been here at all. Eventually people forgot about the well and gave up trying to make it work, leaving it to rot, forgotten in the middle of the forest. No one alive has ever seen anyone come out of the well, until I came along, that is. Bakugo said this last bit with an air of smug pride, as if he and he alone was chosen to discover you. Maybe he was banking on becoming a famous legend himself. But, no one knows how the well works, right? Did something happen in your world that might have triggered something? Like a spell? Kirishima asked while taking the smoking sticks of meat from the fire. You drummed your fingers on your knees, trying to remember what was happening before all this started. Today felt far longer than it was in reality, and the jarring changes and adjustments were throwing off your memory. There was something. Yeah, something was happening back home, I can't remember. Maybe food will help. A thoroughly cooked stick of meat that still had the vague silhouette of rabbit was stuck under your nose as Kirishima wiggled it in front of your face. It looked better cooked than it did raw, that was for sure. Bakugo snatched his own sticks and dug in without hesitation. Table manners. Well, there was no table, so maybe manners didn't count here, seemed non-existent as the three of you ate in comparative silence with the fire crackling in the background. Maybe Kirishima was right, because you were halfway done with your food when the memory of what you were doing when you fell in the well came back like a slap in the face. The eclipse. Your yelling echoed in the cave and disturbed any peace and quiet the night offered as Kirishima nearly dropped his food and Bakugo hopped to his feet. The F was that all about, you moron? The eclipse. That's what was happening back home when I fell in the well. Kirishima exchanged a confused look with Bakugo as they calmed down. What's an eclipse? Maybe you have a different term for it. It's when the moon passes in front of the sun, causing the sky to go dark during the day. It happens very rarely and people travel, what? You paused your explanation to see the concerned looks on their faces. That sounds like the sunless day, Bakugo completed the sentence Kirishima started. Well, that certainly sounded more ominous than an eclipse. Is it the same thing? Bakugo sat back down, hands leaning on the knees of his worn-out trousers while looking you in the eyes. Does bad luck happen on your eclipse day? You shook your head. The sunless day is when the sun is blacked out and casts a shadow over the land. People stay indoors because bad things are said to happen, though it sounds like factless rumor to me. His expression coupled with the uneasy tension in his shoulders said he didn't wholly believe his own words. So you fell into the well during your eclipse. Maybe that's what triggered the portal to our world. Kirishima seemed to take comfort in finishing off his food before it got cold. If that's the case, how do I get back? Maybe I have to go back through the well during this sunless day here. When's the next one? You asked, finally getting somewhere with an answer on how to get home. But they shrugged their shoulders in tandem. Dunno, they happen at random, and not too often. At that your heart sunk once more and exhaustion overcame you despite the food in your stomach. It was information that didn't help you at all right now, so what were you supposed to do? Hey, cheer up. We'll stick with you and figure out some way to get you back home, right Bakugo? Kirishima clapped you on the shoulder with a strong grip and a confident grin. However, the wild man just clicked his tongue in response. I never agreed to that. I got you out of the well because I was bored, and thought you could prove useful if I let the old hags who love to gossip in town spread the word that I plucked you from the magic well. Kirishima furrowed his brows at his friend since he could tell you wanted to get home as soon as possible. So on that note, we gotta make sure you don't get eaten, so don't wander off like an idiot. You were silent for the rest of the night, leaning against the hard cave wall as Bakugo and Kirishima whispered on the opposite side of the wall. The fire had almost gone out by now, so the warmth it gave off had disappeared in addition to the light, leaving you in cold darkness. You shivered at the temperature drop, but your eyelids grew heavy despite the rapid and active thoughts running through your head. Eventually, you fell asleep without even realizing it and dreamed of strange silhouettes and bizarre sounds. You were totally unaware of the warm, BLD red cape being tossed over you in the middle of the night, your dreams on the edge of nightmares dissipating as you unconsciously wondered what you'd wake up to. Bakugo couldn't even remember why the hell he was so mad that day. His vision was clouded with red and anger, but rather than risk destroying everything in his room with an explosion, he just let his fist fly right through the drywall. Dust landed on the ground, his knuckles red from the force of the blow. What the F? He screamed, pulling his hand away from the broken piece of wall, plaster stuck to his skin, to reveal a jagged hole right in the center. He wouldn't be able to easily cover this up with a piece of furniture. Aizawa would give him classroom chores, or make him sit out in training because of this. It was school property, so damaging it outside of class had to hold some kind of minimum consequence. His overwhelming need to be a successful student told him to admit to his F-up, while his hatred of being chewed out by authority figures told him to hide it. SHD, ponytail. She can fix this. Or she'll snitch, or tell Four Eyes, damn it. While he paced back and forth figuring out what to do, a knock echoed at his door. SHT, did someone hear? Come to investigate. Katsuki, you called through the door, causing him to huff through his nose. Are we still doing movie night or are you gonna cancel again? God. Damn it. Of course he'd completely forget about the DMN date he promised you after blowing off the last two because he needed to study. But maybe. No. I'm not a shitty boyfriend, he said through the door before opening it, yanking you inside, and locking it behind him. What the hell is that look for? You asked before turning around and stopping in your tracks. Oh no. You didn't. What did you do? A stern finger pointed right at the black and ominous hole in the drywall. Bakugo clicked his tongue. It was an accident. I was sessed off. At what? I don't remember. Aizawa is gonna make you sit out of training for this, or do chores for the dorms again, you groaned while looking at the hole. What are you gonna do? Bakugo paced and growled behind you. If I get Ponytail to try and fix it, chances are she'll snitch anyway. And I don't want to leave it and have bugs or whatever the hell lives in walls come crawling in my nose while I sleep. Gross. Yeah, that's what I said. Fine. I'll tell Aizawa tomorrow, so don't go snitching to anyone before then, he said through gritted teeth. You rolled your eyes but nodded in agreement. On one condition. He stood and listened with arms crossed. Movie night, you screamed while tossing him the DVDs you brought. You are so weird. He didn't object, though. Honestly, he enjoyed these small one-on-one dates but wouldn't admit it aloud. The black hole in the wall loomed behind him as the movie played, reminding him of the agonizing conversation he'd need to have with his teacher. The next day, Bakugo and Aizawa walked side by side towards his room down the hall. Honestly, Bakugo. Expected better of you. I guess throwing a punch is better than blowing something up, Aizawa droned on with that familiar tired stare. Bakugo grumbled under his breath, his own form of apology. As soon as Bakugo opened the door, he knew he was going to kill you. Right on the wall where the hole was sat a black picture frame, neatly hung over the damage in an almost artistic way. "I'm going to kill YN." Aizawa actually barked out a rare laugh at the display. "For some reason I like it. You're still in trouble, though." Bakugo wears V-neck and scoop neck shirts and tanks because he hates the feeling of anything even mildly restricting around his neck. The sludge villain attempting to suffocate him, Darby's hand around his neck, anything that feels even remotely tight makes him nervous and anxious, but he'll never let it outwardly show. His winter hero costume has a high collar, but it's not restricting or tight under the jaw. It feels protective and gives a sense of security that someone would have trouble grabbing him with it on. It's also removable, with hidden clasps on the inside, so that if anyone does grab hold it will pull away so he can escape. Still, he doesn't let anyone near his neck, ever. Not without an immense amount of trust, at least. He has to absolutely know that, if anyone touches around his jaw they won't squeeze, if anyone kisses him there just below the ear it won't turn into a jarring bite. Soft touches, warm breath, gentle fingers, the reassurance that he's safe in an area where he feels most vulnerable. It's like running the callous tip of his finger over an old scar, a memory that feels far away and numb. Reassociating an area of hurt with something more calming and NTMT takes time, an immense amount of patience, and a handful of trust he has to learn to give. A fan spun slowly on the bedroom ceiling, circulating air in the dark and otherwise still room. The bed covers shifted slightly, the rise and fall of even breaths nearly undetectable. Feet mingled together, skin brushed against skin, sliding against the fabric to find familiarity. "Long day," you asked, your arms folded and head resting on your forearms on the freshly washed pillowcase that smelled like lavender dryer sheets. Katsuki grumbled, adjusting himself closer to you as though it were only second nature. Being a hero wasn't always recognition and glory. Sometimes he got annoyed, or a villain got away, or fans bugged him, or he couldn't save everyone. No one could save everyone, all the time. "Day's over, doesn't matter," he replied, memorizing the dark silhouette of your hair and shoulders next to him as though he hadn't done it 1,000 times before. "You can always talk to me, you know." Yeah, he did know, but opening up left him vulnerable even though logic and trust told him his paranoia was misplaced. Shifting closer he could smell the conditioner in your hair. Sometimes he used yours and wondered how you hadn't noticed yet. Your breath on his skin, the exposed collarbones catching moonlight from the window blinds like stripes of starlight. He knew your target in the silence, words unneeded as you moved in to place a kiss on his skin. Light and delicate and safe. And still he froze, waiting for an inevitability that wouldn't come, not from you. He could still breathe, still take in your scent, still swallow without difficulty. Another kiss, and he let out a shaky sigh. There existed no middle ground between the extremes of past and present, and right here, right now, was good. Safe. As if mirroring his own mental reflection, you said, "I feel safe with you, Katsuki." Safe on all fronts. His arms found you and held on to keep that safety intact. Another touch, another warm breath under his jaw, his BLD pumping under his skin which lay under your lips, alive with the thrum of his beating heart. Alive. At 1 touch he stiffed, at 2 he relaxed, at 3 he embraced you tightly, at 4 he closed his eyes, at 5 he kissed you back. After that, only the darkness kept count. Aizawa sat with Yamada in the teacher's lounge at UA discussing in hushed voices what to do about the new student. Someone should be her mentor or something, not it, Aizawa said while sipping on a food packet. Yamada scratched the back of his neck. "I'm already her super rad new dad, so I have my hands full there. She needs someone bright-friendly. Non-judgmental. With some iron patience." They both hummed in response before the door to the lounge burst open and Kirishima ran through before skidding to a stop next to the table. "Sorry. All Might wanted to talk to both of you about the new student. Took me a minute to find this place, though." Yamada and Aizawa looked at each other and came to a silent agreement. Me. Kirishima looked at the two teachers dumbfounded that they asked him to be a mentor of sorts to the new girl. He knew she'd been through quite a rough time and having someone around who could show her the ropes and help her adjust would be good, but why him of all people? Ida was class president. He could be a little stern and uptight, but he could handle something like this. Yoromomo, too. Maybe not Bakugo, Midoriya. Him. Focus. Aizawa snapped in front of Kirishima's face, bringing him back to attention. Sorry. You're a good kid, Kirishima. You got spunk and courage, Yamada said with a thumbs up. I hate to agree with him but he's right. You got Bakugo of all people out of his shell, and if you can do that, you can do this. You aren't nearly as weak as you think you are. Aizawa fixed Kirishima with a stare basically telling him he really had no say in the matter. I can. Leave it to me. Disappointing his teachers wasn't an option, so he resolved to not back down from this challenge. He could do it. When classes were done for the day, Kirishima stepped outside, waving goodbye to his friends as he headed towards the front gates of the school. It's fine, it's cool, you got this, Kirishima. He gave himself a small pep talk as he approached a figure standing out by the gates. Hey. We're supposed to meet up. I'm Kirishima, by the way. I think things may seem kinda crazy right now, but I'm sure you'll adjust in no time. The confidence that Kirishima built up for this meeting faded when you turned around. Despite the tiredness behind your eyes and reserved body language, he thought you looked pretty. You bowed slightly, which he didn't expect. Kirishima, nice to meet you. Yamada-sensei told me you were going to help me adjust. He noticed your voice sounded a bit robotic, as though you'd been stripped of emotion or were afraid to be anything other than exceptionally polite. Maybe he could break you out of your shell with a bit of time and effort. Why, that's right. It doesn't have to be today, but I was wondering if you've ever been to an arcade. Played video games. You shook your head and Kirishima was glad his first and only idea played out. Great. I mean, let me start over. I think it'll be fun, there's lots of different kinds of games, no pressure. There's other people there, too, but it's not super crazy or anything. What do YA say? I suppose I should experience new things. So yes, I'll go with you. Maybe it was Kirishima's bright smile or his earnest gaze or his enthusiasm, but you felt at ease with him in that moment. Great. I'll, get with you tomorrow about it. It's be fun, promise. It would take time, but maybe learning about video games and new foods and things normal teenagers did if Kirishima was around wouldn't be as difficult as you imagined. Just tell me what it is, already, Bakugo nagged as the two of you walked down the street towards the cafe. It was out of the way enough of major crowds for Bakugo to actually agree to tag along while also having great coffee and pastries for you. It's embarrassing, so no, you answered with a firm tone. It was a lie, of course, but you hoped he couldn't pick up on it. In reality, you hated your quirk. You hated feeling the villainous potential it held every time you thought of it. People couldn't choose their quirks, and most people got along in life just fine, but sometimes you wished you were quirkless so you wouldn't have to lie or deal with the consequences of a quirk that could only hurt people. He can never find out. I'll keep it secret for as long as I can. 2 years later No. I was so stupid. You sped down the sidewalk as fast as your legs would take you, knowing what chased you from the shadows. People looked on but did not bother stopping to check on you, to see if you were okay, and chose instead to keep walking and go about their day. You were so careful with who you gave your name out to, so meticulous with your personal information, but one day you had to slip up, or their digging and endless searching would finally pay off, whichever came first. Skidding on the ground, you bounced off a brick wall to sprint down an alleyway, trash crunching under your shoes as you refused to look back. Keep going, I have to keep going, I have to, Gotcha, girly. Something large and formless landed right in front of you from above in a cloud of dust, causing you to yelp and fall back. A hand or tentacle or claw grabbed your arm, you weren't sure, and you struggled to pull away despite your disorientation. Let go. Let me go. You yelled, but their physical strength far outweighed your own as they yanked you roughly to your feet and bent your arm behind your back. A figure, large and ominous and constantly shifting as though made of squirming slimy fingers, stepped out into the dim light. All you could see was a set of grimy yellow teeth surrounded by worms. Nah, we finally gotcha. Took us, how many years? Doesn't matter, it was a lot. You thought you were real good and real smart, eh? But we gotcha. And you're gonna help us all, ain't ya? You struggled again to free yourself from another figure standing behind you, but it was no use. I won't use it, I won't, you thought while staring down the figure in front of you. Bakugo would never let you hear the end of it if you showed fear or weakness. F you, I won't do anything to help YH. A tight grip twisted your arm until the skin started to pull and you felt your muscles about to stretch and snap. What was that, hair? The voice dripping with venomous intent asked with a rasp like buzzing hornets. You should reconsider, not like you got a choice, really. But breaking your arm would really make all this harder than it's gotta be. A heat burned in your chest and behind your eyes as you stared down the villain in front of you. A familiar heat that you attempted to quench, but it was no use. The white, toothy grin faded in an instant. Sirens roared while police and paramedics walked the area. You sat on the back of an ambulance, a warm blanket over your shoulders while your feet dangled limply over the edge. Your eyes were blurry and you couldn't see straight, couldn't see anything past the regret. Move. Shove off. Where is she? A loud and familiar voice echoed from your right as Bakugo barreled through a small crowd until he spotted you in the ambulance. He grabbed your shoulders but you couldn't see him, just a blur of blonde and orange and black. What the hell happened? Are you okay? They radioed me here when they heard it was you and oi, what's wrong? You attempted to look at him, but it hurt to look at anything. Weakness flooded your muscles and despite the tightness in your throat and inability to breathe without pain in your chest out of nerves you felt glad to see him. Katsuki, I'm sorry. What? Sorry for what? You were attacked by some dumbass villains. Looks like someone took care of them though judging by all the police. You got a dash, it was me, you whispered in a small voice. I did it, it was me. I tried to stop it but I was so angry. And I couldn't let them take me. Your vision cleared just enough to see the confusion written on his face. What are you talking about? I hurt them, my quirk, I hate it so much but they've been after me for it and For the second time that night you broke down, supported from falling to the ground by Bakugo's gloved hands on your shoulders. The two of you silhouetted against the bright white of the ambulance lights felt pain of two kinds, one of regret and one bewilderment. He didn't understand but he held you all the same. There would be no more lying going forward. The tight collar around his neck bit at his skin, raw and scabbed from the crackling shock it gave off if he tugged against it. The wounds never healed because he never stopped trying. His clothes were tattered and torn and dirty because he was never given new ones, and the fur on his ears and tail which should have been soft and shiny looked lackluster and felt like straw. When the stress got to him, some days more than others, clumps would fall out. Eyes once the color of shimmering rubies now looked on like pools of dried BLD, dim and cracked and lifeless. This was Bakugo's life, a life of imprisonment and abuse. He once roamed free under the moonlight but was captured and trained as an attack dog for the cruel old sorcerer who lived at the top of the tower. Other beings inhabited the small castle, but they had neither minds to think with nor skin to feel pain. Bakugo was the only other sentient creature there, and he was convinced the bestiary enjoyed seeing him suffer. A stone archway covered in moss and dimly glowing runes stood at the end of the long lawn made up of dead and barren earth. It taunted Bakugo endlessly, for no gate or door or lock stood between him and freedom, just the collar around his neck that burned if he set 1 foot too close to the arch. His fingers, calloused and hard from attempting to scale every possible wall he could, twitched at the longing ache to roam free outside these walls. He'd never stop trying because he knew no one would come to save him. No one ever did. It was far too late to rely on others, but his spirit was nearly broken. Rain pelted down outside as thunder roared and lightning lit up the sky in shocking white and grey. The castle was forbidden to him unless he was being punished, so he sat soaking and wet and pathetic outside under the small sheltered stone awning, feet muddy and body shivering. He could barely feel the cold, or anything, anymore. One ear twitched as he heard distant footsteps near the arch. People could enter, but no one could leave. That was the rule. If he didn't attack, he was beaten. If he didn't growl, he was starved. The temptation to lay down and never wake up was strong on the darkest of days, but he would never give up on walking outside and feeling warmth once more. He looked up through the rain to see a dark figure, a silhouette, clinking along in heavy armor through the puddles and mud. The freezing rain had seeped into his bones, but he stood up on instinct, knowing what would happen if he didn't. He wished someone would destroy the sorcerer, obliterate the source of his pain, but he was a forced foe against potential allies. His feet moved more on instinct than anything else and carried him towards the approaching figure until he stood between you and the closed doors to the castle. You stopped and looked at him, your features obscured by the metal helmet you wore. Before they could speak, Bakugo sprinted forward with broken claws outstretched. He felt nothing as he lunged at them, swiping down as they jumped back from his opening attack. "I'm only here for the sorcerer. I don't want to fight you," you yelled through the rain, voice chowing inside their helmet. Bakugo ignored your call and ran through the rain once more and watched you pull out a sword, gleaming against the moonlight above. You swiped across in an obviously wide arc as a warning. He had no weapons, only his own body. Bakugo growled at the intruder, lip curling and ears flattening against his head. "Your neck, he tortures you, doesn't he? Keeps you here." Bakugo paused, eyes widening at your observation. His collar must have shifted to reveal the red and raw skin underneath, though he dare not touch it. "Let me past and I'll set you free." "You know nothing. What makes you think you will win where so many others have failed?" Crawling on all fours, he ran towards you through the exhaustion of the rain, but you failed to attack him and only dodged. Again and again you sidestepped his weak clawings, refusing to swipe at him. No one ever comes out if they go in. What makes you different? He couldn't take more false hope, another opportunity to escape slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. If you went in and lost, he'd be punished for failing to stop you. "I know how to defeat him," you yelled through the rain, and only then did Bakugo realize the voice sounded feminine. A rarity, but it didn't matter. You'd fall all the same no matter how strong you were. At one point he locked hands with you in a stalemate, his toes curling in the mud as he attempted to keep his footing and topple you over, but you resisted. How? How can you defeat him? He needed to know you had a plan before he even considered acting against orders. "I know the source of his power, his staff. I have to break it. The inside of my armor is covered in protective runes. I'm no amateur, I've trained for his. He's a plague, you know it as well as I." Bakugo paused to think. If you lost, his neck would bleed and bruises would form on his skin from the beatings he'd receive. But if you won, you were his last chance, possibly his only chance at escape. He quickly explained the layout of the castle and golems that stood in wait beyond the doors. If you could get past their slow and lumbering bodies to the top of the tower, you stood a slim chance. It was better than nothing. "You have to knock me out," he said while stepping back but remaining in a fighting stance. You paused and looked between him and the castle. "What? Why? Can't you just dash? No. You have to defeat me to get through the doors or he'll know." He put on a show with his remaining strength, which wasn't much, and lunged at you for one final round. If you couldn't defeat him, you had no chance of getting through the tower. You reluctantly put up your fists and knocked his away easily before landing a blow in the side of his head, effectively knocking him into the sopping wet earth. It hurt more than he thought it would. "DMN, Shein punch. Sorry. I swear I'll come back for you." Rather than finish the job, you ran past him and kicked open the doors to the castle, disappearing into the darkness inside. The same runes carved into the stone archway lined the door, blocking Bakugo from following. "You better thing win," he thought as he closed his eyes, exhaustion finally overtaking him. He didn't open them again until he heard a distant voice and felt a shove against his shoulder. The rain hadn't stopped, but it had slowed and he shivered in his soaking wet clothes. Hey, wake up. Come on, Tao." That voice, it wasn't the sorcerer. His vision cleared as he looked up into an unfamiliar face. Your hair was matted and a line of BLD streaked across your face, but you had kind eyes. The armor you wore gave it away that you were the fighter from earlier. Wait, how long had he been out? What happened? Did you? Bakugo sat up quickly before wincing in pain from the blow you'd given him earlier. You hushed him and placed a hand on the side of his head, but he flinched at the unfamiliar touch. Yes, he is dead. The golem's inside stilled and his staff is broken. He'll harm you nor anyone else again. He didn't know what to feel when he'd been overcome with apathy and lost hope for so many years. Was he dreaming? Was this an elaborate illusion to kill his remaining drive to live and escape? Do you have a name, you asked, and he forced himself to focus. A name. He had one long ago, but the sorcerer never used it. He was mutt or maggot or wretched dog, but never. Bakugu, he answered. He swore never to forget it. Bakugu, you repeated before giving him a tired smile. That's a good name. Can I? You reached towards his neck, but he recoiled on instinct. The magic should be broken. This is what kept you here, right? I can break it. Bakugu swallowed and stared at you with intense scrutiny. You swear he's dead. Sitting back, you dug into a small satchel at your waist and pulled out a bloody stump of a finger. A large gold ring with a disgustingly familiar insignia curled around the knuckle. Good enough proof. Bakugu wanted to kill the bstrd himself, but this would do just fine. He nodded and you slid it back into your pack before reaching towards him again. Once more he flinched away. It won't hurt, I promise. Staring at you, he finally stilled but swallowed hard as you gripped around his collar. He felt your fingers graze his skin and he couldn't help but wince, years of torture conditioning him to expect pain. After a minute he heard a snap and the clink of metal before you pulled away with the collar dangling from your hand. Was it really gone? With a shaky hand, he reached up and felt around his neck, expecting the familiar cold metal, but all he felt was air and bare tender skin. He must have looked shocked from the look on your face. Even though the collar was gone, it felt difficult to breathe, like he was panicking over the reality of his supposed freedom. Come on, I can wrap your wounds back home. I have to tend to my own anyway. You stood up and looked at him expectantly, waiting for him to follow. Bakugu braced himself in the mud and stood up on wobbly legs. He hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days and the shock of everything didn't exactly help. When you passed the stone archway, he stopped right where he always did, right where pain would shoot through his body if he dared to take one more step forward. You held out a hand and beckoned him past. It's all right, Baku. Without looking back, because he never wanted to see the castle again, he grit his fanged teeth and stepped past the threshold to grab your hand in the light rain as the sun peeked through the dissipating clouds in the sky.